Hello, ladies, gents, and others. It is Friday. It's 2nd of October 2020. Welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. And the gin is not the drink. So, we're doing something a little bit different today. We're going to have a lot of fun. So, you better get your drinks now because there's going to be a lot of stuff to go through. Uh, in general, it's always the same thing. We are the gin and tonic show. In other words, we help Muslims and non-Muslims alike to understand and handle Islam in the 21st century. Now, we do that by having some people here on the panel with us. And what we normally do is we invite any and every Muslim to come and join us to see if somebody likes something, if somebody does not like something. So, if you want to join us, you can always do that. So, hello to the gentlemen on the panel. We have Rob. We have Can Free Speech Survive Islam? Or Can Islam Survive Free Speech? We don't know. And we have our favorite Moose staff. Ah. Hello, Mustafa. How are you doing?
Greetings. I'm doing okay. So yeah, you'll be hearing once again straight from the moose's mouth.
From the Moose's
Good
mouth.
evening, everybody.
And
And
Mr. Can Free Speech.
hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the listening audience that are listening live. Hello to everybody there, and to my fellow panelists. Good evening. Good to see you all. Good to see you're back with us again, Mustafa. Missed you last week. Looking forward to your input this evening, and as well, Stotts as ever, my cantankerous adversary, and Rob Speaker's Corner, the Devil's Advocate. Good evening to you two.
All
All
good.
right,
And it's
guys.
good to have
Then,
Ray here. So go on, Slops. You do your bits and then we'll carry on from there.
so what I'm going to do today, I'm going to make everything a little bit quicker because we've got some really fantastic footage to go through. Because what happened is we were contacted by an ex-Muslim. He was cornered by some apologists, and he was saying, what does a person do in such a situation? And we thought this is a brilliant idea because we are talking about Dawah in action. What do you actually do if you come across somebody who is giving you all this nonsense? How do you react, and what kind of attitudes and what kind of tactics can you expect from the people? And that is why we decided, okay, let's go through this and have this as a case study and see what kind of tactics are being employed, deployed, and used, and how to go and address them. Now, we're going to do this in some detail because there's a lot of different things in this, and it's not such a long video, it's less than an hour. But we thought we will go through this. We're going to try and do this as quickly as possible. So, Gin and Tonic Show, we help Muslims, we go and we look at Islam. If you want to join us, normally you comment question or you're simply curious, then you can do that. Today it's going to be a bit of a tight space, but normally we do. If you do want to join us afterwards, come to the Discord server. Discord is it's a platform that you install a small token or whatever it is on your whatever machine you're using, and then you just find Gin and Tonic Show, go to the after show audio, and then you can come and chat to us. This is not, by the way, recorded or in any way kept, whereas this here is recorded and is going to be transmitted over to YouTube and Facebook. So we focus on Islam exclusively and we let the Quran speak, and this is what we do on a weekly basis at this time, 8 p.m. on the UK time, on the Gin and Tonic Show. So what we normally do is we have different segments, okay? What we normally go through in one show. And what we try and we bring an objective view. We try not to go through polemics or too many things regarding Islam. We try and bring facts. And the way we do it is we go through, the statement, we look at some news, we have some crazy comments that we've accumulated or gathered over the week. Then we go and look at the Quran, which today, because we don't have time, we're going to skip. Then we're going to have the theme of the month, is what we're concentrating on at the moment, which is Dawah at work. And then we are going to have a closing hadith. Now, in the news, there's a couple of things. There's a distinction between child marriages and pedophilia. Now, this is amazing because the European Court of Human Rights says that these are revolutionary ideas. Now, listen to this again. There's a distinction between marrying a child and pedophilia. I don't quite understand that, but they say it's a victory for religious feelings, feminism, as well, of course, as the patriarchy. So this is really a sad moment where the European Court of Human Rights thinks that it's a revolutionary idea to differentiate between child marriage and pedophilia, making child marriage something that is legal just because there are religious feelings attached to it. And that shouldn't, I don't know, this shouldn't be.
What's the minimum age of child marriage that they define?
Well, they don't. You see, this is the problem. And this is the problem because even in Islam, there is no such definition. Because you have madhabs which define it as 9 years, but some don't. They say it depends on puberty because they are saying if a woman can, or if it's not that a woman needs to be 18, but it's if a girl menstruates, then she's ready for sex, which is absolute bullshit because there are girls who have menstruated at the age of 5 or 6 or 7 or something, and they're definitely not ready for marriage or for sex.
Oh,
So-
and yeah, that's in all five like the Hanafi, Hanbali, Shafi, Maliki schools of thought. There is even you can marry before what do you call it, puberty or
Yes.
menstruation.
Marriage,
You-
yes. There's no
marriage
age limit
and-
down to in some
and-
of them.
Yeah, and even Ayatollah Khomeini and Sistani reported that you can perform other sexual acts aside from penetration, even to a baby.
And that was you can use the thighs of
Yeah,
the baby up to as some kind of masturbation vessel.
Yeah, you
Exactly.
can use that.
And just on that stops us, I'd like to ask, this is obviously men marrying little girls. This isn't older women marrying young men.
Oh, right.
Of course, yes.
Of course. So when we're talking about this kind of material and this kind of subject, we're only talking about men marrying little girls. We're not talking about women marrying little boys.
It's funny, isn't it?
And no one seems to be seeing the pattern in that in itself.
She can make her bed, she passed the test. Unbelievable. Okay, then I have two items because in France something interesting is happening. We have, well, apart from, I mean, I woke up this morning and you know when you switch on the news and you take it in, and I was like in shock when the guy who keeps on saying, well, coronavirus, what is that? That's a hoax. That's just a hoax committed or like created by the Democrats. Yeah, but now he's got COVID-19 and his wife. So this is, I mean, the irony here is so amazing. Anyway, so apart from that, but we're focusing on Islam. All right, so we're not going to talk about Trump. In the New York Times, they have a report about the French. I don't know if you Emmanuel Macron is in my eyes. He's quite a brilliant guy, and he is now taking on radical Islam. He says he's gearing up for a 2022 re-election and outlines measures to curb what he calls Islamist separatism. And the French president said the influence of Islamism must be eradicated from public institutions, that there is a parallel society of radical Muslims thriving outside the values of the nation. And separatism, as he describes it, that thrives in some neighborhoods around the country where Muslims with radical vision of their religion take control of the local population to inculcate their beliefs. And he wants to fight that.
Stops. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, we were discussing the Muslim guy who murdered 2 women and put their bodies in a freezer, and he was found to have married a 14-year-old girl while he was at the age of 22 in the local mosque, meaning the imam knew and all the visitors and such, because if you're having it in a mosque, they'll dare say there'll be witnesses and things like that. So the community knew that was going on. And the conclusion we draw, because you sort of like beat me to the point, and that was there's a whole subculture within Islam that has no respect for the law of the land within it resides. So there is 2 laws. There's the law of the land of the country that you reside in. Then there's Islamic law, and it's clear Islamic law supersedes the law of the kuffar, and where Islamic law overrides the law of the kuffar, they kind of subvert it, keep it in the community, and do not let it out. And it seems this is what's now being addressed. It's long been known, for instance, very much like the sex grooming gangs of the girls that were mutilated in England for decades with in the knowledge of the police, but no one dare say anything. And it's now beginning to appear that people are beginning to rise up to this.
Well, the other thing is that if somebody comes to you and says, well, it is quite obvious because we are told that we need to sort of obey and follow the laws of the land if we are not in an Islamic country. Now, I've heard lots of Muslims claim this. This does not exist. This is not in the Quran, it is not in the Hadith, it is nowhere to be found. It is just an extension of an interpretation of a sentence in the Hadith which says that you need to, in a foreign country, obey the caliph if you are not in your country. But this applies to Muslims only. So they say, well, if you need to obey another caliph, which is also a Muslim in another country, well, maybe we should extend this to this and this. So, but the actual command to go and obey the law of the land does not exist.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and just on that, can I just add that goes back to the point I've been making for decades about the apostasy ruling, about killing those who leave Islam, and it shows up the cowardice of the Muslim that says that an ex-Muslim should be killed or executed, but then they cite the law of the land that they're in as to why they're not prepared to carry that law out. But my argument is, well, there is no law in the Quran that says you have to follow the law of the land. The Hadith is quite clear. If a man leaves his religion, kill him. It does not ask you to pursue any kind of authority to do that in a Muslim land or in a non-Muslim land. And what you're in effect doing is putting the law of the land above the law of your God.
And you can't do that, yeah.
Yeah.
There are instructions, I think in Sistani, Ayatollah Sistani, but keep in mind he's part of the Shia sect, basically the Shia Jafari sect, and the Ismaili sect as well. So these are the only two sects I've seen that are somewhat adaptable to foreign and try to modernize themselves, or at least, try to obey the law of the land and keep to themselves. Whereas with Sunni Islam, most Sunni schools of thought, I see the opposite. They want the ability to enforce their own laws, like usually I said.
Yeah. Okay, and then finally, Voice of America reports that, again, Macron says that Islam is in crisis all over the world. And this is quite obvious to everybody who's not a Muslim. Muslims, of course, said, no, what crisis? What earthquake? What are you talking about? Well, guys, you're in trouble. Because Macron points it out. And this is nice, actually, because, for example, the hesitancy in other countries to name a perpetrator a Muslim Islamist or an extremist or something, this has changed in France, because they are now saying if somebody is a Muslim extremist, this was a Muslim extremist. Where in the UK, you will never find this. They will say, well, he was Asian or he was something. They don't want to do that because they don't want to get any kind of negative feelings towards the Muslim population, so that people don't go and attack the Muslims personally, because there is not enough information out there for people to be able to differentiate between a Sikh with a turban or a Muslim, for example. So
apart from the name Muhammad, because Muhammad doesn't give it away, does it? Abdul or Kareem or Khan or Mustafa. Sorry, not this Mustafa on the panel. But, we all know what we're talking about, so the name doesn't give it away. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you have somebody in the street, there's a lot of people, primitive people, who don't understand this, who will go and tug at the niqab of a woman, for example, or they will go and attack somebody with a turban because they don't understand that this is not a Muslim. So anyway, so Macron said that Islam is a religion in deep crisis worldwide, even in countries where it is the majority religion, because, and he backs it up, he says, tensions between fundamentalism and political projects that lead to very strong radicalization. And that is why he's saying there's a huge problem out there with Islam, And this is what Muslims have to be ready to appreciate and accept, which
He is
they
correct.
don't.
In Pakistan, there is this people are recognizing that, oh, another atheist, another ex-Muslim, at least in the online sphere, and because of Haris Sultan, there's a rising number of apostates in Pakistan. So, and there are also like the moderates who are also challenging the existing, ideas, and then they're being brought into attention that no, these laws actually exist. Islam is the problem. They're slowly realizing Islam is kind of the problem,
Yeah,
and
but they're also saying it.
yeah.
Okay, Ray is obsessed.
Okay, let's go into the crazy comments quickly, because I can hear that Rob is dying to get into this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we get started. It's going to be 3 hours.
So
at
this
least,
is
I think.
somebody who didn't like that I said something, negative about Islam or something positive about what Armin said or about, I can't remember what I even put here, but he didn't like this. So he says, stop spamming, take my dick into your mouth, and came down. I don't know what that means. And you got my comments deleted, hypocrites. I don't know what he's talking about. I have no clue. And then he said something, I find your mama and sis sexy. Will you send them for one night? This is, I don't know. I didn't comment on this. So what the hell? This is something that Rob sent me. You should have invited Hamza and Mohammed Hijab, the two specialists on atheism and proof for God's existence. The specialists for God existence, yeah. Come on, we eat them for breakfast or every Friday evening here. So that's how scared they are. That's how sure they are of themselves. Atheists trying to prove supernatural through natural means. My head hurts.
Yeah, I've got the quote from Carol about that as well. There's nothing that suggests that you can't investigate the supernatural through the
Exactly.
natural means. I'll just quote it quickly for interest's sake. This is page 120 of the big picture. There's nothing in practice of science that excludes the supernatural from the start. Science tries to find the best explanations for what we observe, and if the best explanation is a non-natural one, then that's the one science would lead us to. We can easily imagine situations in which the best explanation scientists could find reach beyond the natural world. The second coming could occur, Jesus could return to earth, the dead could be resurrected, judgment could be passed. It would be a pretty dense set of scientists who, faced with the evidence of their senses in such a situation, would stubbornly insist on considering only natural explanations.
Yeah, but Rob, this is just the opinion of one guy. So what the hell? Anyway, this is somebody who's an expert in the field who says exactly that. This is what they always try and negate and reject and say nobody thinks that. This is totally ridiculous. Science always presupposes or totally rejects this. And I always tell them, no, it's not. And here's somebody who's one of the top scientists on the planet, and he's saying exactly this. So yeah, it's quite weird. Okay, these views held by atheists are detriment to the human race and the true understanding of our purpose. Oh my God. All right. Well, then you go ahead and do that and do it for all of us. A big salute to all of the brothers for their patience and wisdom against the atheists. You know, it's like this is a war, and it's the we and the them, and we need to win over them, and we're just asking questions. We're just asking, why the hell do you believe that this is the case?
And just
They
on
can't
that,
answer it.
and just on that as well, if I may, they use the term "we" as the collective, but they themselves do nothing in this war. If it is a war, fine, we'll use the term war, and it's a battle of attrition. But these people themselves are not involved in the war. They're just observers. They're just the crowd cheering their men on. So that
Yes.
term of "we," I think, is an inappropriate use in terminology for their contribution in this.
It is. But that's all they have. And the funny thing is, once you try and get some reasonable arguments from them, they run away. Because I've made some enemies now this last week with two sheikhs, actually. And they are totally helpless. They don't know what they're saying. They're saying, well, you don't have enough of a brain. I said, well, I don't have enough of a brain, but me with not enough of a brain can easily dispute and refute and everything that you are saying. I can show that everything is wrong, and it doesn't take much of a brain, as you just said. So you're shooting yourself in the foot, but this is how they see it. So this guy says this panel is too good for delusional atheists. And he's talking about the panel of a group of Muslims who are sitting there talking total nonsense, as we shall see just now. And he says, for the delusional atheists. Yes, famous last words. If an atheist can't see a belief, it is not a claim. Well, okay, to believe is to have both the claim and an attitude towards that claim.
Yeah, I put that in because they're all being hypnotized by Hamza talking nonsense, saying, "Hey, when I say I believe God exists, I'm not making a claim." What utter nonsense! But it's the same for the atheist, by the way. If we say we don't believe, we are making a claim. So, to think you're not making a claim is just ludicrous. But I just put that up and quoted it for them and said, go and read that, because you can't put links in.
And this is why I always say you have to differentiate between saying, I believe God does not exist, and I don't believe God exists. There's a difference there. One is making a claim, the other one is not. But now Rob has actually persuaded me to use the latter so that I actually am making a claim, and I know how to justify it now. So I'm actually quite happy. I'm more happy now saying what I am than I was a year ago. So I'm quite comfortable with that now. So we have an Abdul saying all atheists, okay, all of them, they believe we came from nothing. So every single atheist out there believes we came from nothing. But an atheist does not believe anything. So right from the word go, he's wrong. They can't explain nothing, so we can explain everything.
Sure they can. Lawrence Krauss explained it. You might disagree with him, but you can't claim that he didn't explain it.
But then you need to be a physicist. Then you can't say an atheist. A physicist can explain certain things, but he can't explain everything. He can just explain something in his field. Like I can explain something in my field, but I can't explain everything. And it's not that I can't explain anything. I can. It's just as an atheist, I can't because I don't believe anything. I don't have a stance or position or anything. In general, I like the general opinion, nothing means zero. No, it does not. 0 plus 0 outcomes 0, and 0 divided by 0 outcomes no. That's also wrong.
You can't, yeah. I mean,
nobody can prove nothing. Okay, this is full of mistakes. But it shows really the ignorance and lack of education here.
And the God of the gaps fallacy, basically, in the very first sentence, it's like, I can't explain anything, therefore God.
Yeah,
that's the fallacy you need to watch out for.
Okay, and this is Sharon Brown. And listen, people, you need to be careful, because there's a lot of tactics going on there. That people claim that they are women because they think they're going to get off. Oh, what happened now?
You've changed your picture. There you go. You've had to start again. You'll have to go through
Where
them
was
all.
I? Oh, shit. Here. You need to be careful because a lot of Muslims do this, that they think they get an easier take if they are females, and this is why a lot of men claim that they are girls. They're taking on girl names just to pretend, okay, we need to be careful of that. It's always just a person. Don't assume that just because it's a girly name that it's actually a girl. The main question is, where did the universe come from? Okay, if that is the main question, of course you can ask the question. The only problem is there is no answer. So if this is
a poorly phrased question, though. Where did the universe come from? I think a better way of phrasing it is there an origin to the universe, and if so, what might that origin be? Because if you're claiming where did the universe come from, there's a hidden inference that it had to come from something else, exactly. Or whatever the case is, right? Yeah. So,
but the next sentence already shows that you can't take this seriously. You can't jump to evolution and forget about the origins of the universe. Yes, you can.
Of course you can.
Once you use your logic, you will come to the fact that there has to be a creator.
Just to preface this, by the way, these are comments on the EF Dawa channel that I went onto. I spoke to 5 Muslims, and the 6th one was a moderator. So I popped on, and this guy called Abbas wanted to say, they were talking about, does evolution disprove a God? And I had to explain to them that when an atheist says does evolution disprove a God? They're not talking about like some random generic God. They're speaking about a specific God. It doesn't disprove deism, but if you're a particular theist and you have a particular view around theism, then it would disprove that if it were true. So that obviously was what I was trying to get at. And Abbas come on and go, no, we need to go back to the beginning of the universe. I'm going, no. Evolution it doesn't even talk about origins. It only talks about the diversity of life after life had got started. So you don't need to go back to the universe. His claim was, hey, if you go back to the universe, if God got it started, then, or if, God was the creator of it, then that's the question to answer. Well, there's some theists that believe that God did get it started and he uses evolution as his mechanism. There's nothing incompatible with that view. If you take that view, and obviously, that would be a challenge for people to show in their books. But if you took that view, there's nothing inconsistent with suggesting that God got it started and then used the mechanism of evolution to bring about the world that he wanted. I don't see a problem with that particularly. In that it's not irrational. Like maybe Thunderous or somebody might argue why that's not right in there, but I don't think it's irrational to make that claim. So, but to go back to the creator isn't necessarily relevant, and it's not what evolution is talking about anyway. Certainly not biological evolution.
Oh God. Okay. This starts with this same girl, whatever person, who says, I'm sure Rob is lying about these books, saying that there could be a supernatural cause. If they can't find natural explanation, maybe we should read the book that is about the author and see what they really say and in context. And then somebody actually corrects him, her, whatever. No, he's not lying. He's a theoretical physicist and philosopher. Watch his debate with William Lane Craig, which is absolutely correct. He totally wipes the floor with this guy, because he combines both. The philosopher.
But there we go. I put the quote in there, and I referenced the book and the page number so that Sharon could go and perhaps educate him or herself. I doubt they'll ever read a book though, but I put it in there for posterity anyway.
And that's a good move if you have this available to yourself. This is a very good tactic. If you have something like this, I've tried to put together a repository of things. But I don't have anything this precise. But in case it does come up, I mean, it's like a brilliant thing to have. And I remember it feels amazing when somebody says, "Well, this is I doubt this," and then you can go, "Well, here's the book, here's the page, and here's exactly what it says." Da 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 da. This is so much fun. It's so good. Well done, Rob. This is actually really brilliant. Okay, this is one of the guys I picked up who hates me because I'm criticizing his shake. So he says the only justice for you is to be crippled for the rest of your life and can't talk or type anymore. Hopefully that's coming toward you. So these nice, friendly, peaceful wishes from a peaceful Muslim. So.
Yeah, just despicable human beings, right? And we used to say, well, nobody else does that, but then we obviously found out that Hindus or some Hindus do that as well. But you don't tend to find Christians doing that. You don't tend to find, or at least Buddhists or other people or atheists or agnostic wishing, harm on people. But you can certainly reliably find at least some subsection of Muslims who want that to happen.
This is a funny one. Another guy. This is on Facebook Free Speech. Bernard Long, you're fucked up in every way, filled with despise. You're also very arrogant and illiterate. You deceptive. What is an MU Nazi? Does anybody know?
No idea.
Is that
Okay.
maybe? No, sorry. I was thinking maybe it was an Arabic word like Unazi. Sounds like an Arabic word, Munazi, but as you just said, it's like Munazi.
Okay, I don't know what a Munazi is. Anyway, I'm a deceptive Munazi.
Yeah,
Get a fucking brain, you high school dropout. Now, I'll treat you like you're a lump of turd, cause I gave you many chances to advance your intellect, but you're stuck in regurgitating vomit from Pippa like Geller, Gabriel, Dot, and the Islamophobes. So be an arrogant ass and block me now, cause I stood up to your hairy, small, Samuel dick ass. You really Stink, bl, no good in you. You want to help Muslims. Ha ha ha. FYI, we were a civilization before you. What you gave the world: war, bombs, destruction, and pillaging. You're too weak to stand on your own and keep your rules for yourself, pal. This is a sight to the page trolls.
And yet, the irony is, they turned pillaging and destruction into a religion, and the biggest financer of war and purchaser of weapons happen to be Muslim countries. Thank you for making that comment.
But I don't think that we're going to be lovers or good friends ever. So here's an I don't know what do I do to people? Shut the okay, shut the fuck up. I mean, why should I? Why? What am I doing? I'm just asking questions. And then another guy comments on what this guy says. He probably believes in evolution too. Leave him alone. Give him time to evolve from the ape that he is. Pity him. This is so good. Oh, this is the page that we need to learn by heart, because this is 30 official Qurans, and then he goes to 700, because this is about the story with the holes in the Quran. Okay, so this shows how when you look at Abd al-Malik, you can see. Oh, why don't I have a pointer? Okay, Abd al-Malik. This is Dr. J. Smith. Okay, so he's with Hatun. They've done this amazing, what you would call it, research, and found all these things. And we need to go through this. This is really, really brilliant stuff, which shows how many different Qurans there are, because you see the 7 in green, then you see the other 3 in red, and then how they had 2 reciters all the time. And this gives you the 10 plus the 20 gives you 30 different Qurans. All in this time period. So this is quite brilliant. Okay. That was me.
Alrighty, let's get started because this is going to go long. I can tell you now. We're going to have
now
a very
going
long one.
to Dawa in action. What we're doing is we're giving you a case study where we're going through a video where an ex-Muslim goes and calls into a show, and they want to help him to understand what Islam is all about and why it was a mistake to leave.
So it was Ryan who asked me to do this. It wasn't a private message, it was a public message on the Speakers Corner UK channel. Stops and I have been doing some video critiques of Muslims over the last week, and Ryan listened in and he said, would you do a video? So I searched up the video. I found the video, and there's just so much wrong with this that it's unbelievable. I said to Stops, let's do it. And we decided sort of last moment to do it tonight because we've still got some more of the other videos. We've got part 2, 3, and 4 of another one that we're critiquing that I went on to. So we've still got to do that one. So we thought, let's do it tonight, which is why we're here. So I hope, Ryan, you're here. And there's plenty to go through here. So I'll start let me get rid of that now. I've left it up there. So now I'll start the video. If you guys have any comments, just say, stop, make some sort of noise, whatever it is, to draw my attention, and I will stop the video. I've got tons of things to say here as well. I only got halfway through in terms of my comments that I was writing down. So hope you're there, Ryan, and hopefully this is of use to you as we go through. So as I say, this is Ryan will be joining this, and then let's listen through here. It's Hamza and Jordan initially, and I think Abbas comes in later.
Okay, Ray is obsessed with Muslims and who's Ray? Right, Ray. Convince me Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam wasn't who he claimed to be. This is the only way you can take Islam from me. That's it. So your hypothetical question is irrelevant because you'd have to do that. If you can do that, Bismillah, go for it.
What was his question?
I'm not sure. So Ryan is there. So you type in the chat there whatever your question was, because we can't see it and he doesn't repeat what the question is. But Ryan does get invited onto the show and he goes on very shortly.
He basically said that if a Muslim is convinced that his beliefs, reasons for believing Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is a messenger of God, effectively are wrong, should he still continue to believe or should he leave?
My apologies. There it was. He's just, he has actually just read it out. My apologies.
The irony of ironies is this: even if you did that, even if you convinced me that Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam who wasn't who he claimed to be, I'm sorry, but the five poisons are still in society. The guidance still remains. So it's kind of irrelevant as whether you would continue to be a Muslim.
Did you hear that? It's kind of irrelevant if you continue to be a Muslim. Hang on a moment. What does it take to be a Muslim? And he actually asks him later on, by the way. He says, what are the two things that's required for you to be a Muslim? And the way he phrased the question, Ryan wasn't too sure what to ask. And then he clarified it. And it's obviously believing, that there is only one God, aka Allah, and that Muhammad's his final messenger. So how on earth can you still be a Muslim if it were the case that Muhammad was disproven? Explain that to me. But he will contradict himself later. So you've got to listen very carefully there. But he said he'd still be a Muslim. What sort of Muslim is going to be if Muhammad doesn't exist?
Because everything you do as a Muslim, especially because I've been doing it for 18 years now, alhamdulillah, is beneficial.
What's that? Did you say something there, Mustafa? Or somebody?
Jordan
said something.
Oh, was it him? Sorry. Okay, no, I didn't hear that.
Should we get him on if you want to?
Yeah.
I'll send the link out, Ray, if you want to come on and take Islam away.
It's your job to prove he is. No, I don't. I don't prove nothing, mate. Go on. Listen, interesting.
No, hang on. No, it's not. We need to clarify this. No, you are making the claims. You are the one who has to show the evidence. You have to bring up why, what, where, how. It is not for me to disprove you. That's not the way that it works.
But also, do you notice that the question that Ryan asked, Hamza didn't answer? Should Muslims leave Islam if they have no good reason for believing? He didn't actually answer that question. So we'll just store that for later.
This is Ray.
Hey, how you doing, Ray?
By the way, Ray, big up to you for going on here. You weren't experienced at this. You hadn't given this a lot of thought and you wanted to go on here. Hamza, at least, is quite seasoned at this. And Jordan is sort of under his wing. And I'm not sure about Asia. So, again, I will say that you're a brave guy to go on here because most often what these guys want to do is expose anybody that's a non-Muslim. And the tactic, as you will know as you start to watch it, is to make anybody else, whether it's Christian, atheist, agnostic, ex-Muslim, you name it, look silly or say something so that their gullible audience will go, wow, these guys did amazing. I'm so much more happy and safe now that I'm a Muslim. So it's a propaganda tactic. Once you understand that, then you know where they're coming from and you know potentially how to deal with them.
How you doing,
I'm
mate?
okay, you guys.
Fantastic.
Hello, Ray.
Go on, Ray. Ray, before we start, what are you? You're Christian, atheist?
Atheist.
You're an atheist. Are you an ex-Muslim or are you what?
Ex-Muslim.
Ex-Muslim. Which country? Which country?
South Africa.
South Africa. Okay. So what's your point?
So, like the question is if you don't have good reasons to believe, okay, and then are you justified in then rejecting that belief?
Yes.
Okay, so and that applies to even if you're a Muslim. So if you're shown that you don't have good reasons to believe, so then okay, so that basically answers my question. So you would give that advice to other Muslims as well. If they don't have good reasons to believe, they should then reject Islam.
Okay.
Okay, notice the question he asked. Let's see if Hamza actually answers it directly, shall we?
If they haven't got good reasons to believe, right? You left Islam, yeah?
Yeah.
Why?
Notice what happened? He didn't answer it. He now shifted the burden over to you left Islam, why? And they're now going to interrogate Ray as to why he left Islam. And the intention here is to show that Ray didn't think about this. In other words, it wasn't a thoughtful deconversion, because in Muslim eyes, there's no ways that you can deconvert and be a critical thinker and have gone through this entirely, because then there's something that they've missed. So this is not something that they can entertain. So now that's why the question was tagged on at the end rather than actually answering directly.
In other words, the fault always lies with the person that's left Islam. It's never the fault of Islam in the first place. It's always got to be a deficiency in the mind, intellect, and understanding of the person that's left Islam. People like me have mental illnesses, mental problems, or we've got prejudices. That's why we don't want to become Muslim or stay Muslim.
Or you're emotional, or whatever the case is. There's some reason, but it cannot be that you were thoughtful, you were critical, and you realize that this is very likely untrue.
Do you two, just sorry, I mean, were you two part of this show? Or this
No. Ray was watching one of our live streams on my other channel, and he said, "Hey, would you critique a video?" And I said, "Yeah, just give me the title." And so he gave me the title of this, and that's obviously him down on the bottom left-hand corner there.
I'd like to go on a show where they invite ex-Muslims to go on and give their reasons why they've left Islam. I'd like to see how they fare.
Well, they're doing something tonight. I don't think it's for atheists, so you might well be able to hop on there, Thunderous. We'll let you know afterwards. It's on Hamza's Den, I think it is, if you type it into YouTube. So that may well be a show that you can go on to. I'm not sure. I think they're only doing atheists again next week. So have a look and see Hamza's Den, and maybe you can hop on there. Yeah.
So I don't have good reasons.
Now, why did you believe Islam is true?
I was brought up.
You were brought up as a Muslim.
Yeah.
Okay. And so why did you leave Islam?
Because
He just said I didn't have good reasons. By the way, this will be something you'll notice throughout here. Ray will give a reason, he'll give a response, and Hamza will ask it again, either like he didn't hear it, he didn't comprehend it, or he just wasn't paying attention at all. So this will be a theme. Watch it. I'll point it out as we go through.
I didn't have any good reasons. I was just basically following what I was brought up.
Okay. So what were the reasons?
Which reasons that I believed?
Yeah.
I didn't have any. I was just basically following because I was brought up. My parents was Muslim, and then I just followed it blindly. And then when I thought about it, and then I realized I didn't really have good reasons.
Okay. So for that point, I would blame your parents.
Okay, so he'd blame his parents for not educating him. Okay, by that light, then would you blame atheists or Christians' parents if their children grew up and joined Islam without thinking about it, or because they weren't taught that maybe Christianity is likely true or atheism is true? Would you blame their parents, or would you more likely just bring them into the fold and not do that? You'll only blame parents when it's a Muslim parents who quote haven't given their son, in this case, a proper Muslim education. I doubt you would reject anybody else.
I actually commented underneath the video. I wonder if my comments are still there. Probably not. Where I said, but how can you blame the parents for the incompetence of the God? Because the God created this human being, knowing that he's not going to have good enough reasons. Why doesn't he then create the parents so that they will give him the upbringing that he should be having, instead of going and saying, well, the parents are not going to give him the right thing, so he's going to fall away, and then I have to go and put him into hell. So he's blaming the parents for something that his God messed up.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to check something here quickly.
I can add something on that.
Yeah, go for it.
But we've already read the Quran in chapter 2 when we were talking about coitus interruptus, and people are ever going to be born or allowed to be born because it's the will of Allah anyway. Then you got the angel that goes down and describes what the person's religion is going to be, whether he's going to have a good life or a bad life or a wretched life and whatnot. So all of this in Islamic parlance is predetermined in the first place. So even if you go with the Islamic narrative and use Islamic text, they can't reconcile their comments with the Islamic text, because the Islamic text, and particularly the Quran, that talks just on the subject of coitus interruptus itself, and the narrative and story behind it shows you predetermination or predestination. So therefore, your whole life course is mapped out. Remember, the angel of death comes when it's your time to die, because we've had that discussion about people dying in floods and things like that, and airplane crashes. The angel of death came and took all those lives away, because Allah deemed it that was the time that they have to die. So if you put all those texts together, that shows you predestination by the will of Allah. So their argument is false, because if a person's left Islam, it was because of the decree of Allah. That's why they left Islam, surely.
Yeah, and
That would
Allah
be true.
set a seal upon his heart.
there.
hardened his
Yeah.
heart.
And Sayyid
Really,
Hussein, this is somebody that I challenged to come here. Okay, you've chosen a bad night because we're doing this review at the moment, and I just taught you something, which is logical thinking, which is listening to the argument, looking at the facts, and then trying to apply them. I've just taught you that. I think. I hope. I thought. Okay, let's continue, Rob.
Good
Okay.
reasons.
Okay. So for that point, I would blame your parents
Okay.
because you should be grounded into why you believe what you believe. I always say this to Muslims, and you need to know why you believe what you believe is true. Because if you don't believe it, you could easily leave it. Do you know what I mean? What did you question? What did you question? What was it that made you start thinking Islam wasn't true?
It's just the mere fact that there is so many other religions out there, and the mere fact that I was born into it was just by chance. I didn't choose my parents. I didn't choose the area that I was born in, and I didn't choose the time that I was born in.
Okay, so let's just make sure we get this because there's a reason why. So his views is because there's many religions, I was born into it, and it was just the time frame. I had no control over this. Those are some of the reasons that he's giving Hamza. So I just want to repeat it so that people hear it, because it's going to be asked again later.
And these are good reasons too, mind you. Like, these are excellent reasons. You didn't choose where or who you would be born to. That is, you don't have that choice.
Yeah, this is the nice thing, because we have two ex-Muslims here who can, who can sort of give us their impression. How does this resonate? How does that work inside you when you hear things like that? So you have a more direct approach to this to Rob and me.
The three main factors that made me a Muslim.
Okay. Did you test Islam whether it was true?
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
No.
How do you know Islam's not true?
Because I didn't say it's not, but I said I don't have any good reasons. And so the time to believe something is not before it's shown to be true, it's after. And it's not my job to actually prove it true. It's whoever's making the claim, it's their job to show that it's true.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
You wish.
No, it's not. It's your job. It's your job. It's your job to test the belief. If you don't believe Islam is true, you must have reasons why you don't believe it's true.
He just told you the reasons. Remember? What were the three reasons? There's many other religions. He was born into it. It was a time in history for him that he doesn't feel that those are compelling reasons. In other words, it was like an accident of birth that he happened to be Muslim, not because there was some other good, compelling reason. So his overall view is no good reasons, and he's given three reasons.
Yeah, and he just shut him down basically, and he's just now in attack mode all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, I mean but that's Hamza's style, right? His style is, I won't answer the tough questions, and I'll tag a question on the end, which is what he did at the very beginning. Because remember that very first question, should you be telling other Muslims the same thing? He didn't answer that question. Instead, he starts to ask him, why did you leave Islam, right? So you've got to pay close attention here, and it takes time to pick these things out. But these are the tactics that are used.
No, you see, the thing is, I'm not making the initial claim. Muslims is making the claim that it is true, and I just don't accept the evidence or the reasons.
No, Ray, you're mistaken. Okay, I'll make it easy for you. I'm a Muslim. I believe Islam is true. What I've just said has got nothing to do with you.
That's complete nonsense.
Excuse me, what just happened? He just said, I don't do it, and then he says he does? What?
He says, I'm a Muslim, I've got these reasons, it's got nothing to do with you. Of course it's got something to do with you, because if Hamza's reasons are compelling and he cares whether people, his view is that people should believe what is true, he thinks he's got the truth, then there is an inherent assumption there that other people should believe it too, if they hold the same values. And that's the same for everybody.
Didn't Ryan just say, listen, but you believe that it's true? And he says, no, I don't. And then, but I do. Isn't that what just happened?
Who? No, Hamza says
Ryan
he
says,
believes
don't you need to believe something that it is true? And then Hamza says, no, it's not. I believe it is true. He's immediately contradicting himself.
Hang on a moment. Let's listen again. I think let's just...
If you don't believe Islam is true, you must have reasons why you don't believe it's true.
No, you see, the thing is, I'm not making the initial claim. Muslims is making the claim that it is true, and I just don't accept the evidence or the reasons.
No, Ray, you're mistaken. Okay, I'll make it easy for you. I'm a Muslim. I believe Islam is true. What I just said has got nothing to do with you. Okay?
He says
Okay.
Muslims
I'm
say
making a-
that it's true. This is exactly what he says, right? He says Muslims tell me that they think it's true. And then Hamza says, no.
Yeah,
I'm
but
a
that's
Muslim
just
and I
his,
tell you it's true.
that's his standard. That's his standard response, right? He's what's called a mismatcher. So he will say no to everything, even when he doesn't actually mean no. Most often he does, and he'll just say no anyway. I mean, that's just his standard response. He isn't. It's just no to anything, right? Even if it's actually not a no. So you're never actually sure when he's disagreeing or with you, but because it's just a standard, thing that comes up in his speech.
claim here. I'm just telling you my position. I believe Islam is true.
And then the question is, do you think your belief is true? Have you got good reasons? Do you think other people should value what is true? And if they do, and you've got good reasons, should they be convinced? And all of those answers are yes. Therefore, he's making claims. And if other people are of similar mind and it's true, then they should believe it too. That's the inference that you can draw. It's a lot, and I've had to explain this not just to Hamza, but to many other people. I come across people who think I'm not making any claims. I'm not suggesting you believe it too. And then I ask them this series of questions, and of course it turns out that there's a hidden inference. They're not going out there saying, "Hey, Rob, stops." Thunderous, Mustafa, you got to believe what I believe. But actually, there's an inference there that's drawn, and those sort of set of 4 questions will uncover that. They will still try and push back against it, but at that point, it's over. If you said yes to all of those questions, then it's the case, right?
Okay.
Now, the reasons why I believe Islam is true is irrelevant to you. Now, you were born a Muslim, you left Islam, which means you came to the conclusion Islam isn't true. Yeah? Now, look at the difference. I was born in a non-Muslim family.
No, okay, this is another thing. Hamza is not really clued up, is he? This is the old thing with the chewing gum or the Tic Tacs or whatever. If you are saying the number is even, then I say no, it's not. Does not mean that I'm saying it's odd. I am just saying no, I don't believe that it's even. I'm not making the opposite claim, and this is what he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was brought up as an atheist, and now I'm a Muslim, right? Now you were brought up in a Muslim family, and now you're an atheist.
Yeah.
Now, you're an atheist for what reason?
He's just told you. I mean,
He's told you 50
see, I
million
told you.
times.
Hamza's not paying attention. Probably this is one of the worst times. He's just not with it at all here. And I think, and I'm suspecting this is because at this moment in time, his brain is thinking of the next thing to say. How do I respond to this? So he's not actually listening to what's being said or remembering it. Again, Ryan said that he didn't have good reasons. He stated 3 reasons, and that's why he's where he's at.
Rob,
And he's asking him
off
why
his script because Ryan is asking an excellent question, coming at it from an excellent point of view, taking everything from a totally different point, and that is fantastic. And this is why Hamza can't handle that. He's out of his depth because he doesn't understand how he can get back onto his script, because this is not the way it is usually phrased. It's brilliant.
So one tip for Ryan, why I keep saying Ryan, because it's Ray. He goes Ray there, but Ryan in the chat. So Ryan, tell us what you prefer, Ray or Ryan. We'll say Ray. I might swap to Ryan. One tip that you could do, Ray, if you hear people keep asking you the same question, stop them at that moment in time and say, can you remember what I said to you? Can you steel man, as it's called? Can you represent what I've said, my argument, my position, so that I know that you understand what I've said? Because it's clear now this is the 3rd time that he's asked that question. So once you hear it multiple times and you know you've responded to it, they can disagree with your response. But if you hear them asking the same question, then definitely get them to steel man, to represent back to you what they think you've said. That will tell you whether they've been listening. And most people who aren't listening won't be able to do that. And then they'll mumble, or they'll give some sort of tactical response. Well, you just say it again, or something like that, right? Anything other than responding back to you with a reasonably accurate representation will tell you that they're not listening.
I became a Muslim because I tested religions. I tested philosophies. And I concluded Islam is the only one that's true. Okay.
Oh, bullshit. That's total nonsense.
No.
How many religions did he test? I mean, it's a very vacuous statement. I tested religions because, first of all, even within religions, you have, say, sub religions. And I say that, and it's probably not an appropriate way of putting it, but for instance, you can say, oh, I've tested Christianity, but okay, how many forms of Christianity did you test? I tested Hinduism, or I tested Judaism, or I tested this religion. Well, how many variations of that religion did you test? Because all of them are not singing from the same hymn sheet. So when he says, I tested religion, he hasn't done that at all.
And
Yeah,
also,
go on, Mustafa.
did he go through the effort of learning Sanskrit to understand Hinduism? Did he go through the effort of learning Greek and Hebrew to understand Judeo-Christian religion? Did he actually learn other languages or other, other variations of the text? No, he didn't. He didn't make that effort. I don't see that.
Yeah, that was my note, right? How critical and thorough were you in your quote testing, right? Maybe you looked cursory at Christianity and a few other ones, and maybe you weren't convinced by atheism or whatever, but you haven't thoroughly tested all of the different worldviews out there and so forth, all the different religions. So, I mean, you can say, hey, I've looked at one or two of the major ones and I've concluded X. That's okay. But to say that you tested them all, or to give the inference that you test them all, I think is not entirely accurate.
Have you tested Islam?
No.
What? But didn't he? This is the second time he's asking, right? He did ask him earlier. Have you tested? And he said no, right? And he's asking him again.
No, he's totally
Right.
out of
So
it.
could
He's
Islam be
totally
true?
confused.
Well, you just find that there's a pattern in this particular video where he keeps asking him the question like he hasn't heard it or can't comprehend it. It's just not paying attention. Like I say, I think his brain is like cycling ahead to try and come up with an answer, or to come up with something to say, and so he's not paying attention or remembering what Ray is saying.
And the thing is, if a Muslim watches this, they must be cringing. They must think, oh my God, come on, stop it. Because every normal person must understand that Hamza is really out of his depth here and is really asking the same thing over and over and over. He simply does not understand it. He doesn't know what to say. This is why he's desperate and always repeating the same thing. So any Muslim who watches this must think, oh my good man, get out of it. You are not a good representative of Muslims. Stop doing this.
Yeah, but again, I think a lot of Muslims are sort of hoodwinked into the tonality, the certainty that Hamza displays, and the content is lost on them. I mean, Hamza could, and I've kind of noticed this, right? People like Hamza, Sabur, whoever it might be, could, I'm not saying necessarily they do, I'm going to be charitable, they could speak utter gibberish, and some Muslims will still go, wow, they did an amazing job, because if you understand how communication works, there's a lot more of communication in terms of your tonality than the content, which is fascinating, right? You'd think exactly the opposite. But when it's been tested in psychology, there's more involved in the tonality of how you speak than the content itself. And this is clear because when we ask Muslims, what did he say that was so amazing? How did he school or rinse or do this or do that, right? You just don't hear an answer. And it's the quickest way to find out whether they're paying attention to the content or whether they're sort of more hypnotized by the tonality and the abrasiveness of the interaction.
It could be.
Alhamdulillah. Right. How would you know if it's true or not?
Probably this. If I could never determine if it's true.
Okay, so I made a quick note here for you, Ray. So one way you can test a claim is against what we understand about reality using our cognitive capacity. I mean, there may be other ways, but that's a straightforward way of doing it. And obviously, you were on the spot here. You probably hadn't done this before, and he's asking you some difficult questions. But one way you can do it is obviously just trying to understand reality with your cognitive ability. That's how you're going to start doing a test. You can incorporate other methodologies in there, but you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But that could be reasonably justified. If there's good reason, then I could say it's more probably that it's true, more likely.
No. How could you test Islam to see whether it's true or not? Because it could be true. You've already accepted it could be true. Yeah. So how would you test that?
Okay. I understand now. I don't know how you'd be able to test it.
Yeah, it's like I say. Okay, you test it against reality. What are the claims? Do they stack up with reality? What's the reliability? What's your sense of how reliable the claims are against what we understand about reality? That's one way you can test it, right? So if you use, for example, the Quran, is the Quran something, what would we expect from a God who wanted to speak clearly and concisely and completely, in a way that would be understandable to all humans across the planet? Is the Quran a wonderful representation of the way God could do this, being that he's all powerful, or could there be an even better way? Things like that, right? So to ask yourself questions about the claims that Islam makes and say, okay, what would I expect? What do we see in the world? What are the claims that are made? Those sort of questions is things you could do, Ray.
You don't know.
No.
So you could be missing out then. Islam could be true. You've not bothered testing it. You left it. For what? What have you left it for?
Okay, but now, so how could I test it? Because I don't have good reasons to believe it, and I don't have a method in testing it. So if you can give me a method in testing it, I could do that.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay, what do you need to believe for Islam to be true?
A good reason.
No.
You see how he just says no, right?
You couldn't give a good reason. That's why. Wow.
It's just a standard, like a cookie cutter, as they call it, response. It's a built-in thing. We all have our own tells. It's called like a tell, right? His tell is no. As soon as there's something that he doesn't 100% agree with, it's just no. It's not that the person is wrong necessarily, but it comes across as if Hamza is vehemently disagreeing with him. But it might be where he thinks the other guy doesn't understand him and he just says no. And so it's a standard response.
To be a Muslim, what are the two things you need to believe?
Okay, listen, remember what he said at the beginning. If Muhammad was shown to be not true, he would still be a Muslim. And what does he ask now? What are the two things you need to believe? Let's listen in, because obviously Ray will get there. But let's see what Hamza's response is to this.
The two things that I would need
to believe to be a Muslim.
For me, I would just need a good reason and evidence.
No. You're missing the point. I'm asking you to be specific, and this is not an opinion, it's not a subjective answer, it's an objective answer. To be a Muslim, what are the two things you need to believe to be true?
Oh, okay. You need to believe in the existence of Allah and that the Prophet is a messenger.
Right. Not just the existence of Allah, that Allah is the only one worthy of worship, and that Muhammad is his messenger, yes?
Yes.
Okay, but didn't you say earlier that if he was shown not to be, you'd still be a Muslim? So make up your mind. It sounds like you're contradicting yourself, at least in my ear.
These are the two things you need to believe. Right.
Yeah.
Do you believe a creator exists?
I don't think it does.
You don't think it does?
No.
Why not?
There's no
I don't have any good reason.
Fucking hell, is this guy sick or what?
But remember the other thing that was asked. What did Ray ask him? Does everybody remember? He said to you, can you give me a method by which I can do this? Because he didn't currently have a method. So he asked Hamza for a method. I gave you a method, right? Straight off the bat, I can tell you at least some things that you can use to ascertain whether it's true or not. And we're still waiting for Hamza to give him a method that he might agree with Hamza with, that they can both then employ to see whether it comes out to be the case.
To believe that it does.
What, sorry?
I don't have any good reason to believe.
What good reason do you need? What's your criteria?
Just a good reason. You see, that's the thing.
Excellent.
If you're proposing,
That's the perfect answer.
if you're saying that there is a creator, then you need to give the method that I can use to actually test this.
Alhamdulillah. I'll tell you why I believe there's a creator.
Okay, he didn't ask you though why you believe. He said, give me a method that I can use. Can you see here that Hamza's not paying attention? So I would give you a method. I wouldn't say to you, hey, let me Ray tell you why I'm an atheist. That's not what he asked. I would say to him, hey, Ray, here you can use your cognitive abilities. You can look at reality. You can match the claims versus reality, see how much they are. Ask yourself things about a God, if it's all powerful, blah, blah, blah. And you could then establish whether this is the case. Does it meet your, what's the term that Sean Carroll uses? We all have I can't think of the word, it'll come to me in a minute, but we all have a certain threshold that we need to potentially change our views. And so, you're going to use some of this methodology to see whether that would happen. But now Hamza is answering a question that was not asked.
How's that?
Okay.
I believe there's a creator without ever needing to read any religious books. Okay?
But he says he has no good reason. Well, how can you say, well, I believe it? That is not giving anyone a good reason, and that is not giving anybody a way to test it. All you are doing is you're making your own claim. That doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, well, I think he thinks that this is a strong reason that would help somebody else. But again, a reason is not a methodology. So Ray's asking for the method that he could use, not the reason necessarily. And those are two separate things.
When I became a Muslim, I believed in a creator. And now the reason I believed in a creator, because I believe this universe requires a creator. Do you
That's your
accept that?
problem.
I don't know.
All right, you don't know.
No, I don't think it's been remotely established that the universe requires a creator. And
No.
most cosmologists that do lean towards the universe having a beginning of some sort don't think it needs a creator. And obviously there will be some religious cosmologist who will lean in that direction. There's an Australian one, in fact, that does. I cannot think of his name off the top of my head. Very smart guy. So there will be the odd cosmologist that will think that the universe is more likely that comes from a creator. But the overwhelming majority, well over 90% of cosmologists, and the number of them that believe in some sort of universal beginning, like Alexander Vilenkin, don't think that the universe requires a creator. So most people do not think that.
All right, I believe it does. I don't believe things come into being from nothing. I believe everything that begins to exist requires a cause.
Okay, I want to highlight this for you right now because it's coming up. What did Hamza just say? Because I've got it here in quotes. I don't believe things come into being from nothing. Right? He says, and presumably he thinks that's a good reason. Right? So he says, I don't believe that things come into being from nothing. I want you guys to remember that phrase because it's going to come back to haunt him just a little bit later on.
Does that not make logical sense? Do you know anything that begins to exist without a cause?
Yeah, one of the things that sort of Skydive Phil put out, and I actually quickly looked online, is this idea of radioactive decay. And there's two particles, and one of them will decay and the other won't. And it appears to be entirely random as to which one will decay. In other words, we cannot see, if randomness is true, then cause and effect is certainly problematic. And that was one of the examples that Skydive Phil brought up, and I remembered this at the time. So it could well be, and maybe quantum indeterminacy might also be the case. But this radioactive decay, it's not that one of them won't decay, but which one will decay. In other words, if cause and effect, if we could rewind the clock, we would know exactly which particle will decay. And in this particular case, there seems to be no way to determine which of those two particles would decay. So if cause and effect is true, we would be able to determine that. It appears that we cannot determine that. Therefore, it is possible that in this particular case, cause and effect is not operating as we understand it. So that's one example.
And we have virtual particles.
Yeah, I mean, that's potentially another one, yeah.
No, I don't.
No. So therefore, do you accept that everything that begins to exist requires a cause?
No, because then nothing
Everything-
begins to exist. Come on, we've done this for years now. Anybody who's ever used this should have seen by now, because for the last 20 years this has been debunked, refuted, ridiculed and everything, that this is a stupid argument.
Well, we've got to ask the question: what does it mean to begin to exist? And we could do a whole show on that. We won't do it now. But the word begins to exist is very important. It's something that needs to be talked about more nuancedly than just steamrolling over it, because even Craig, even the cosmologists, even some of the more sophisticated theists do talk about it. It's not a case of you can just roll over that and think you know what you're talking about there. There's two different senses in which that word can be used, which we won't go into now. And so we've got to be a bit more careful of that. So Ray, a question, if you ever hear this again, you can say, what does it mean to begin to exist? And you could then get somebody to explain to you what that means. Because whichever way they go, they're going to come to a position where it's not going to run as smoothly as they think. So do ask them, what do you mean by begins to exist?
Thing that I know of, except the universe, I don't know about the universe whether it needed a cause or not.
That's a good answer. Because neither do cosmologists. Some think it do, some think it don't. There's no consensus. So that is a good answer to that question.
It begins to exist requires a cause.
Okay, everything that begins to exist, yes. Let's put it that way.
Or put it more accurately, as far as we can tell, everything within this universe that exists, that begins to exist, depending on what you mean by begins to exist, requires a cause. So it depends on what you mean by begins to exist. That's very important.
The other problem with this is he constantly says everything. He does not know of everything because nobody has examined everything.
I mean, he's using the Craig argument, everything that begins to exist as a cause. But you're
stupid.
Right, because
It's
we don't know
dishonest,
everything.
circular,
And if we can
stupid,
show that something doesn't have a cause, well, that throws the argument out, right? Like, this radioactive decay or the other potentially quantum indeterminacy. If any of those are true, then that first premise or the first thing is false. So, and if that can be demonstrated to be the case, well, then you can never use that ever again. So Got to
So
be a
I've
bit
done
careful there.
I think even 3 or 4 videos on explaining this. And I
And
think
you believe the
Skydive
universe began-
Food has made a huge long one on this, like a full hour, looking at the kalam and how to easily refute it, taking every single word with every single possibility. I think that is the most comprehensive refutation of the kalam.
And Skydive Full has spoken to Hamza multiple times, but I think it's obviously went
But
over his head
anybody
probably.
should know what they're talking about. Anybody, if you spend 10 minutes researching Kalam, any 10 minutes researching the cosmological argument, you will find that there are so many contentious issues here. There are so many refutations. There are so many questions. There are so many things that this is not something that you should bring up anymore.
to exist.
I don't know. As far as I know, there's no evidence either way.
Right, so you go.
Okay, slight correction there. It's not that there's no evidence. There is evidence that, well, let's put it this way, that there are views that point towards what people think is evidence. So it's not correct to say that there's no evidence either way, but there's no conclusive answer at this stage. Because there is evidence that some cosmologists think there is some sort of beginning, some cosmologists think that the universe is past eternal. And they are pointing not just to theoretical physics, but some views point towards what they think is evidence. So slight correction. It's not a major thing, but not that there's no evidence, just there's no conclusive agreement among the cosmological community about universal origins. I think that's the best way to phrase it.
Against us the idea that the universe is 13.5 billion years old, yeah?
That's what the evidence shows us.
No. I'm not interested in the evidence. I'm interested in what you believe. Do you believe the universe is 13.5 billion years old or not?
Right, he just asked about evidence, and now
Sorry, what was that?
sorry, yeah, he just asked about evidence, and then he's like, "No, what do you believe?" Like, it's just going in circles, basically. What you believe, but there's no evidence. It's like shifting goalposts, circular. It's like, and attacking. It's these tactics I'm just seeing, and it's actually blood boil at this point. It's like, what are you not understanding?
I think there's also conflation between a belief and the reasons for the belief. One is the Ray's going, I'm not sure, which is the best answer you can give at this stage. And then he's saying, well, does that mean that you think the universe is not 13.5 billion years? No. I think the easiest, if we're listening to this and this comes up, unless you believe differently, of course, but I think the easiest way to tackle this is to say, well, I'm undecided on the universal origins. As far as I can tell, looking at different models, there isn't a consensus among cosmologists and astrophysicists. I'm not in a position to argue that I know more than any of them or that I can go with a conclusive argument one way or the other. Yeah. At that stage, that's, I think, the best answer that we can give, because if you're going to start delving into it, then it's going to sound as if you're taking a position, which you aren't, if you aren't taking a position, and then they're going to ask you to defend it. Now, I could defend either argument, but that's not helpful if my initial belief is that I'm undecided. To push somebody further when they're undecided is both, I think, disingenuous and completely unhelpful.
Don't know. So my understanding of the 13...
A simple question. If you can't answer simple questions, we'll say goodbye.
But he's trying to give you an answer. So I think this was just, if I'm super charitable, this is probably one of Hamza's worst days. He's very short patience. He wasn't listening potentially here. And the number of errors in here, like I say, I've got over 50 points here in the first half of this video. So let's just chalk it down to one of his worst days.
Yeah, but how can he say, well, listen, if you don't accept what I tell you to accept, then I don't want to talk to you? What kind of an attitude is that?
Well, because he wants yes or no answers, right? But not everything is as simple as yes or no answers. And when he doesn't hear what he wants to hear, then his patience runs out, or he constantly interrupts somebody because he's listening. Cause like you say, he's got a script in his head in some fashion, and he's listening and he's waiting for the short answer so he can ask the next question. When somebody doesn't do that, then there's a level of frustration or there's immediate interruption because he feels like they're not going down the path that he wants.
But what I like is that Ray stuck to his guns. He didn't go away. He didn't budge. He said, look, I don't have the good reasons. You're the one who has to give me good reasons. And then when he went with this, he said, look, I don't have a good reason. And this is why he said, no, I don't need to do that. You need to give it to me. And that's perfect. That's a very, very good stance, and it's a very good way to stick with it. And I'm very happy with it. It's just that Hamza can't handle this. This is the problem.
Yeah, I think Ray does slightly a little bit later on. Not a major thing, but it's we all learn, right? Where he gets pressured by Hamza and then does at least partly take a position. I think that's the you've got to, like you say, stand firm and especially in the face of somebody that's quite belligerent and pushy in a thing when they're not going to accept that sort of answer.
Okay. Okay, just repeat the question.
Okay. Do you believe the universe began to exist 30.5 billion years old, or do you believe the universe has always existed?
I think it always existed.
Okay, that's where he made a mistake. Initially, he said he wasn't sure, and now he said it's always existed. Now he's got the burden, right? He's now given one of the two options, and he's now got to defend that. And that's just something to be aware of. If you are undecided, just stay undecided. Use that word, keep it in your head, and then don't be pressured to go one of the two options if you don't believe it. If you do, by all means, give out your reasons. But if you don't, then don't get pressured. So, he's now taken a position that he's going to have to defend now or attempt to.
And it's a red herring. It's totally, it's ridiculous. Don't
Yeah,
go
that's
there.
a good point, right? Because remember what the question was initially. Can Hamza give Ray a methodology by which he can test Islam? And at this moment in time, he told him why he was a Muslim, and now he's gone down the route of the cosmology, and he's questioning Ray on cosmology. And Ray has said, or he will say shortly, that he's not an expert in this field.
Can I just add on that?
Go on.
Can I just add on that? The subject is whether Islam's true and whether Muhammad is a prophet of God. And now we've gone into whether God exists or not. And they're two totally separate subjects. And what he's trying to do, from the way I see it, he's trying to commandeer the conversation and lead him. It's what's known as badgering the witness. He's trying to badger him to cajoling him into admitting that there is a God, and therefore, by implication, then he'll try and use the usual default scripts to narrow him down to Islam as being the truth. One thing I do believe in God. This is not the tactic I would personally choose in the discussion.
Presumably, Thunderous, if somebody asks you for a methodology as to how you would ascertain whether Christianity is true, A, you wouldn't tell them your beliefs about it, and B, you wouldn't start questioning them on why they don't believe that. You will ask for a methodology, you will provide that, whatever yours is for that, and that hasn't been done here. I think we just need to reiterate that again.
Hi.
Because I don't think there could be a point where there wasn't ever anything.
Why do you believe that?
Because something can't come from nothing.
That's not a good reason.
Let me just go back and remind you.
Yes, exactly.
Let me just go back and remind you here. I'm going to quote it. Hamza, I don't believe things come into being from nothing. That was his quote. Remember I said to you, hang it in the air?
Yeah.
Now Ray has said exactly the same thing, and he says this is not a good reason.
God,
I told you to come back and haunt you. It's these little things, right? And obviously with hindsight, I mean, I was watching the video, and when I heard this, I'm like, hang on, but didn't he say earlier? And I went back and checked the video. And I can understand if you're in the conversation, you might not remember everything that's been said. Even I don't. But certain things linger, right? And that's why I wanted it to linger in the air, because he's now said it's not a good reason. So is it only a good reason when he says it and not when somebody who's a non-Muslim says it? I don't think that's, I think that's
Muslim listening to
inconsistent.
this must realize this. Any Muslim listening to this must remember that Rob said like a few minutes ago, remember what Hamza just said. And now he's saying the exact opposite. So he's contradicting himself within just a few minutes. Now, any Muslim watching this must admit that this is not the best way of doing it. And that is what we are criticizing. This is what we are saying. There is no consistency. There is no good way of doing it if you're doing it this way. And you must agree with us. There is no way that you can say, oh, Hamza is doing a wonderful job here. There is no way. But people in the chat are doing that. But anybody who's listening to us here, how Rob is sort of rolling it out for you, you must, you have to accept it. There's no other way. Yeah, and this is exactly it. It seems that Hamza is just a role playing as an expert apologist debater. That's exactly it. This is his script. This is something that he's learned, picked up somewhere, where he's just throwing out these things, waiting for the catchword so that he can jump to the next question and then say, ha, I got you.
I think it is, because something can't come from nothing, meaning that there's always got to be something.
Or it came from nothing.
Okay, but you don't believe that it came from nothing. He's just said he doesn't believe it's coming from nothing. So why are you trying to press a point that neither of you believe when he said that he doesn't believe that? And who actually says something comes from nothing anyway, apart from somebody like Lawrence Krauss, and he's given his reasons. Now, if you accept that that's what nothing means, then he's got an argument for why that's the case. Now, if you don't accept that, again, the other thing, Ray, to bear in mind here, it's similar. You've got to ask. One of the things you want to make a note of is ask a Muslim when they say to you, ask them, what do you mean by nothing? Do you mean nothing in a scientific sense, or do you mean the philosophical sense of absolute nothing? And if they mean absolute nothing, then you could ask the question, I think it's a valid one, and I've asked them, where in reality is there such a thing as absolute nothing? At any point ever in the history of reality, whether you have a God or no God, why is there any reason to believe that something that you want to call absolute nothing in fact exists? It's a concept, a bit like a pink unicorn. We can talk about a pink unicorn, but does it exist? Have we got any good reason that it exists anywhere in the universe? We haven't been everywhere in the universe, but we can infer that it requires, X, Y, and Z to be the case, and it's unlikely. But it's even more unlikely that absolute nothing exists, because everything that we've tested within the universe, at least, even where you would have called something absolute nothing, in fact is not nothing. There's a quantum vacuum, which is what Krauss calls nothing, the absence of space, time, energy, and matter. If that's not nothing, then what the hell is nothing? And if that is nothing, then they have had experiments, it's called the Kashmir effect, where virtual particles pop in and out of existence, and they push these plates together. So if you're going to accept that that's the definition of nothing, then in fact things can, quote, pop into existence out of, quote, nothing. If you're not going to accept that and you're going to talk about absolute nothing, now the burden's on you to share with us why we should even take that concept as anything more than a concept. I've got no reason to believe that it exists anywhere in reality, especially if you're a religious person.
Mm. And I think it's the Kazimir effect. But my favorite nothing is actually the Tracy Harris nothing. If you ever want to go and look that up, I think that's the best. She drives people absolutely nuts with her way of asking them about this.
And I think actually logical that something can't come from nothing.
And so you think it's logical the universe always exists?
Yes, it's more plausible than something coming from nothing.
So all the scientists are wrong about 13.5 billion year old universe.
As far as I know, there's no
claim. That's not what is being said. Where does he get that from?
And the thing is, by this stage, because I think this is relatively recent, right? He's had conversation with Skydive Phil about this as well. And it depends what you mean by universe. If you're talking about a local universe, i.e. from the moment of the rapid inflation, which we typically call the Big Bang, then from that, quote, moment to about this moment is about 13.78 billion years. But that says nothing about whether the universe had a beginning or whether the universe is eternal in the past. All it tells us is from the moment of inflation to now. And if there's something, quote, before that, then either there's some sort of beginning or there's a past eternal universe. So at no point are you contradicting, quote unquote, what we understand about the life of our local universe.
Consensus of whether it began. I think that's the beginning of the Big Bang, but I'm not. Sorry?
I believe in the Big Bang.
I think it's the best model that we've currently got.
Do you believe in the Big Bang? What's the Big Bang? Describe it to me.
Oh my
Why is this relevant? Can you see the rabbit hole that's been going down? And Ray, this is something to learn, right? Once you start going down to a rabbit hole, it's like, try and have in your mind, what was the original question? Because there's a rabbit, Muslim apologists are very good at going down rabbit holes when they avoid the original question. If they don't like the question they hear, they will find ways to dodge, to go off on tangential points. So again, one of the things you want to do if you're disciplined is not bring up anything that a Muslim can latch onto, because they'll latch onto something that's either tangential or irrelevant and run off in that direction to try and refute you, and then never get back on the original point. And the gullible Muslims will go, look how you refuted him, not realizing that they went off on a tangent and the original point was never substantially responded to. So you've got to be very careful of introducing something that allows them to do that.
And this is always the direction that the argument always ends up in, that they will take, they will never address the main question, like you said, and just run off on a tangent. Like even in the comments, multiverse, they'll even bring up multiverse just to bring up heaven and hell. Like,
But I think this is also good learning for Ray. You took the position that you think the universe is eternal. Originally, you were undecided, and then you sort of slightly bullied, I guess, maybe, or whatever was going on in your mind, and you took a positive position. Once you did that, now you've gone down in this rabbit hole. Now, if you accept one of those two positions and you really understand the reasons and you can give them, then it won't feel like a rabbit hole. But now you've gone down a rabbit hole, and at this point, it's a case of potentially going, okay, hang on a moment. Let's get back to the question here. I'm not an expert on this. I've told you that already. Let's get back here because here's my original question, and off you go again. But that's not always easy, right? We can all get sucked into that, but it's just something to try and bear in mind.
What happened to the Big Bang?
It started from a dense point.
What started?
The singularity started from an infinitely dense and infinitely hot point,
What
and
started
then
the Big Bang?
the universe.
Well, it depends what you mean by the universe. Okay, again, this becomes quite a nuanced discussion, and you've really got to know what you're talking about. I'm not by any means an expert, but if you listen to Scott Phil or Sean Carroll or whatever, there's a lot more to this universe, etc. I mean, lay people just want to steamroll over this because they don't understand it, but there's a lot more nuance here. And so, what you really mean is that matter and energy, what we understand by matter and energy at that moment in time, rapidly inflated. I think that's the easiest way to describe it. Is that the universe? Well, you could take a position that that's our local universe potentially, but then what does it mean to be a universe, right? And then off you go down that rabbit hole. So it's a nuanced discussion that probably isn't best done with Muslim apologists that really don't know much about this.
Oh, so it began.
From
you need to differentiate between beginning and transforming. If you are taking wood and you're making it into a bench or a whistle or whatever, as from what point does this begin? This is the whole point of beginning. You need to define what it is that you're talking about, what the criteria is for beginning. So you can't just say that it's beginning. You need to then go and specify what it is exactly that you are talking about. Is it from after the Planck length, after the Planck time, after this, or are you specifying something after or before or whatever? So you need to be, but he doesn't understand this. You see, he's just throwing out sound bites that he's picked up somewhere, but he doesn't understand them.
Yeah.
From the singularity it started.
What began at the
Which,
Big
by
Bang?
the way, also doesn't. This is also outdated, right? The singularity thing. So this went out like 30 years ago. So I also recommend not using that.
Time and space.
Yeah, that's right. That was Sir Roger Penrose and Stephen Hawking in 1997. I can't remember the name of the book, but they've subsequently changed their position. They don't use the term singularity, and there's certain things I don't remember the specifics of it. I could ask Skydive Phil that happened since that book came out that persuaded them not to use that term.
Is that a moment in time?
Sorry, say again.
Was that a moment in time? The book.
Oh yes, yeah. That I think that's the one. Yeah, that sounds like it. Yeah. So they've updated their positions about that, and they don't use that term anymore.
Because of infinity, it's a mathematical problem. Because as soon as you go and you actually you apply it, you get into a mathematical infinity, which doesn't help you. This is why they said, no, let's do away with it, because let's replace it with inflation, which makes a lot more sense. And then they tested it, and lo and behold, that's what it was.
Yes.
Right. Has time and space always existed?
Space always existed? No.
Right. So it began.
Well, what is space?
How
What is
many
space?
times-
You see, you've got to ask the thing. If you're going to go this way, Ray, notice what's happening, right? You're going down a massive wormhole here, and you're not. It's not easy. You're not easily going to dig yourself out. But if you are going to go down this wormhole, then you've got to ask, what is space? What does that mean, right? Because Hamza's just using this. It's like he's very much a bull in a china shop. Nuance on these discussions is just not something that he's akin to. And even when he's given this by somebody from a layman's point of view that has expertise in this field, a guy called Skydive Phil. If you go and Google Skydive Phil and Hamza, you'll come up with multiple videos there where you can hear his expertise, and I know him reasonably well, and I was lucky enough to go with him and interview people. He has a much deeper understanding than any layperson that I've come across. He's not a professional, but he has got an understanding, and he's had these discussions with him. And it's still Hamza's trying to use these words like he knows what they mean. If you don't know, or if you're not sure, just say, what do you mean by that? Because that gets the other person to explain to you what they mean. And then A, it gives you time to think, but B, it also gets them to tell you what it means. And then you can either agree or disagree. But don't allow them to just use words and then you kind of in your mind know what you think they mean by it. And then it just takes you down a rabbit hole. Yeah, Detective Inspector Monkfish. I'm so destroyed, Phil. Gotta love that. Yeah. By the way, Detective Inspector Monkfish is one of our experts as well in certain areas. I say expert. He'll be very humble about it, but he's got some knowledge in certain areas. So he's trolling, but he's doing it masterfully.
I'm not too sure
You're wasting
of
my
where to
time.
begin.
You're wasting my time. You're just trolling. Goodbye.
You know what I find interesting is the
Honestly.
Okay, let's say I accept you that it began.
I don't want you,
What-
no, I don't want you to accept nothing from me. I want to know what you see, because if you started this whole conversation,
No, he started this part of the conversation asking you for a methodology by which he could attempt to find out whether Islam is true. And you've gone down a rabbit hole. Then you get frustrated when he's not an expert in the field and he's being a bit more cautious on his responses because he's not giving you, quote unquote, cookie cutter responses that you can just move on to the next point with. What would have been interesting is for Ray and Jordan to have a discussion, since Ray is, I don't know how long he's been an ex-Muslim for, Jordan's a relatively new one, and then let the two of them have a conversation and see what happens with sort of more of the two novices, if you want to call it that. I may be mistaken, Ray. You may have expertise in fields that we're not aware of, but certainly on cosmology, maybe, for example, whatever the case is. So you just got to, again, I commend you for going in here, but you've kind of realized you've gone in against somebody who's a bull in a china shop and he's going to steamroll you whenever it feels like it. As soon as you make a claim, though, that is like his, the more higher level claim, he's going to then, especially if you make it about Islam, he's then going to want to go into the nuance. He's then going to dive deep, right? But as soon as it's the other way around, then he wants to steamroll over these sort of things. So just keep in mind to ask, what do you mean by X? What do you mean by Y? Get them to tell you what they mean.
And also, if you see, this is the second time that he's shutting him down. He's like, okay, goodbye. So this is the second time this is happening.
Yeah, he's frustrated here, and obviously he's a bit short-tempered here. But as you can see, it goes on for quite a lot longer.
I need good reason to believe this. I need good reason to believe that. You got no good reason to believe what you're saying.
The problem is I'm not a specialist in that field. I'm just the layman on your street. I don't know too much about cosmology. And so that's where I'm struggling to answer those questions.
But that's fine to say that, right? You've got to reiterate that at the very beginning and say, here's my understanding is I'm undecided, and stick with that so that you don't have to take a position if you don't believe in that position, and just remind them that you're not an expert. And if they keep trying to press the point, then they're going to be disingenuous, because all we need to do is come in there on a topic they're not experts on, like cosmology, which they're pretty clueless on, and we can expose them as clueless. But that's not the point, right? So you just got to stick with your guns there.
But the thing is, as well, by this discussion, he's basically trying to show the audience as well that Ray doesn't know what he's talking about in certain areas. So if he doesn't know what he's talking about in certain areas and he can't admit or dismiss them, then what position is he in to do the same with Islam, Muhammad, and the Quran?
But what he did do, I think, Thunderous, hopefully we agree, is that he asked a good question. Okay, so I left it. You think I didn't study it or whatever. I agree I didn't study it or whatever. But what method can I use, Hamza? And at this point, we haven't heard even remotely a method. What we've heard is Hamza's one or two reasons why he thinks it is, and then immediately turning the tables on Ray to quiz him on this. At no point has Ray had a methodology here.
And this would have been a good moment in time, actually, to go and turn it around and say, look, I'm not the expert, but can you tell me what happened? Can you tell me the process? Can you tell me? And he would have been totally, totally lost.
Yeah, but I think you can hear that stops in what he's saying already. So to have, hopefully, I mean, you and I probably would, and maybe Ray would, at this point you can recognize that Hamza has no clue about cosmology. He's heard a few catchphrases. So to go and ask him, all you're going to get is sort of waffle and babbling responses, right? So I'm not sure that would take you any other than to expose Hamza. But remember, you're only going to expose him to people like us that kind of are paying attention. To the Muslims, it's music to their ears because they all sing off the same song sheet, right? So whatever he says, they've heard before. So it backs up their beliefs, even though they don't know why they believe it. They just do because somebody's told them. But here's another guy they respect telling them the same thing. And in their lights, the more people that believe it, the more likely it is to be true, which of course is a fallacy, but that's oftentimes how people get hypnotized.
Okay, we made a big claim. You said the universe has always existed, and you're not an expert on cosmology. So why are you making that claim?
I said it. According to me, I think that it began. I'm not saying definitively that it began or that it's infinite.
No, we've gone against.
Okay, but you did take a position, so you've got to just stick with one position, because otherwise you can get a bit confused here, especially if he's grilling you and not answering the question himself. So just take a position, hold that position, and against any response, because what else can they say? If you're undecided, you're undecided, and you give a reason, right? Which you did actually do.
You have gone against the Big Bang.
At no point has he gone against the Big Bang. And I've explained it, and that shows that he doesn't understand. Whether you believe the universe had a beginning or whether you believe the universe is eternal in some way, neither of those positions negates the Big Bang. Neither of them. So it shows that he really has no clue here.
That's according to what the cosmologists are saying.
Yeah, so you're going against the cosmologists who are experts in what they're doing against you.
No, you're doing that. Isn't that the irony is very thick here? Where's my meat cleaver irony cutter? You are taking a position, which is the universe had a beginning, against the consensus of undecided cosmologists. He's not doing that. He's in fact saying that. He did get sort of maybe tricked or bullied into taking a position, but he's now gone back to say, hey, I'm not sure really. That's what I'm understanding. So no, he's not doing that. That's what you do. And I've challenged you on that, and obviously it just goes down a dead end.
And please, somebody tell me I'm being a good boy because I'm not screaming at the screen.
I appreciate that, because we're only 13 minutes in and we're already at 9:30. So like I said to you, we're going to end up at 12 o'clock here, UK time, I would imagine. And whoever needs to leave prior, just let us know.
I never even looked at the clock. Yeah.
What you're talking about, and you need good reasons to believe stuff. But in this case, you rather take your own opinion because it suits your narrative rather than what the other side is saying. Because the other side requires a cause of the universe, and you're trying to hide from that.
He's
okay.
That's how illogical you're being.
The irony, man, I've got my irony meat cleaver next to me here, and it's cutting through this like I'm a butcher at the moment.
I get your point. I see what you're saying. But I still don't see that how it gets you to a creator. Even if it...
Excellent.
Perfect.
There we go. Let's take it back a little bit. Now the thing's on him, because that was the original question. That's a good way to segue back to, you give me some reasons now, because that's how it started.
Exactly.
If he came on here and said, okay, I'm going to defend atheism, different story. But if he came on and asked questions, then you should be providing answers, right? But again, most often people are not as comfortable answering questions, they are asking questions. And as soon as they get an opportunity, as Hamza has, then he starts to turn the tables.
But I like that Ray has a good instinct for this, because you can see he's not experienced anything. So Ray, I think you're still listening. I'm very happy that you have the instinct to go and say, hang on, I don't need to do this. I need to wait for him. And this is exactly the right approach.
At the beginning.
Oh, right. Okay. So if it had a beginning, we just already established the principle that things that begin to exist require a cause. Cause and effect.
There he goes again.
Yeah.
All right. So what's the cause of the universe?
I have no idea.
Great answer, right? And actually, the answer is, hey, I don't know if the universe had a beginning. If it's uncaused, i.e. that it's past eternal, then obviously it wouldn't have a cause. I, Ray, or me, Rob, in this case, I'm undecided. So the grammar of your question tells me that you weren't paying attention. Because if you ask me what's the cause, and I've said to you I'm undecided, then obviously that question isn't directed at me. You must be speaking to somebody else.
Alhamdulillah. Okay. Do you accept the cause of the universe has to be more powerful than anything we know?
Okay, and I put a question mark here. What does it mean to be powerful?
Yeah,
And even if we grant that, all that we're actually saying is that something more powerful than we know was involved in the beginning of the universe. It could have been Thanos or
Sorry.
Go on.
No, I just wanted to ask, how do you know how much power it requires to create a universe?
Exactly. I mean, it's entirely speculative. And how do you differentiate more powerful than us? Sure, by what standard? By what? The ability to create, matter or to manipulate matter? Okay, cool. We can say something is powerful. How powerful? We don't know, right?
More powerful because I would say yes. It need to be more powerful. Yeah, I can grant you that.
I mean, there's nothing to even think about. We don't know anything powerful enough to cause the universe. So whatever caused the universe has to be more powerful than anything. Yeah.
Did you notice what he just said there? It has to be more powerful than anything. What he said before, and I made a note of this, right, is that he said it's something that's more powerful than we know. It's something more powerful than we know involved in the beginning of the universe. That was the questions. Now it's more powerful than anything. Can you see how quickly it's a shifting of the goalposts? It's very subtle. It's very quick if you don't notice it. It's suddenly now more powerful than anything.
And the thing
Well, we
that he
don't know
said
what-
before that is even worse, because he says, why are you even thinking about that? That is the worst thing that you can tell somebody after you've just asked them a question. If you ask, somebody should think about your question before they answer.
Yeah, good point. Of course you should be thinking, because in his mind it's a given, right? It's if the answer is straightforwardly obvious. There's nothing to think about. You must just say what he's expecting you to say, and that's not the case.
Yeah. Okay. Do you believe the cause of the universe has to be conscious?
Conscious. Not conscious in the sense. Oh, I don't know. It's.
Excellent.
Never thought that line of.
Rob, just wait. The thing that what I always bring up, because the thing is that a theist somehow doesn't have the the imagination to think of way out possibilities, because the example that I always come up with is it could be a huge being that just goes and blows the nose on a tissue, throws away the tissue, and this develops into the universe where we are in, where we are tiny compared to the size of the tissue, because it's a whole universe.
I think the response
is not conscious, it is not powerful, it is none of that. It is just the matter that the snot of the nose develops into a universe. This is a theoretical possibility, and it doesn't require any of the things.
Yeah, but I think you've got to be a bit careful with that, Stops, because then a theist is likely to say to you, but what you're referring to is actually God, and you just don't realize that you're referring to God, right? So if you say a powerful being that does X, Y, and Z, then they say, okay, well, that's just God, right? You're referring to God. So you've got to be a little bit cautious on that, because they will then say that you are actually referring to God, but you're not willing to acknowledge that it's God. You're just saying it's some other entity because you don't want to acknowledge it. So you've got to be a bit careful.
I'm perfectly willing to do that. I'm perfectly willing to accept if they show me any kind of evidence that this is the God that actually exists. I'm showing a theoretical possibility. It's hypothetical. I'm saying it requires no power. It requires no consciousness. It requires absolutely nothing, no knowledge of anything. And wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Here you have a universe without anything. And if this God exists, cool. I can go with that, because it's not a God that will interfere. It's a deistic God. It's just somebody who blew his nose into a piece of tissue, threw it away, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah, but I think you're giving away too much there. You're giving away teleology, and they haven't got to the point where they've established teleology is even the more probable option, let alone, which Hamza is going to make now, the only possible option. That is a mountain to climb, to say that any other option is. But you're surrendering that, hey, it could be teleological. I'm not even prepared to do that.
Rob, I'm saying this is just a thought experiment. I'm not saying this is the way that it was. I'm not saying I believe this is the way that it was. I'm just saying this is a possibility that you can think of.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. What I'm going to do, because you seem to be struggling with my question. Sorry,
No, you were struggling with the answer.
We've got a back joined us as well on the phone as well. I think you'd like to say things as well.
Okay, Ray, sorry.
I can't.
Right, I'm going to make it easy for you.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you why I'm a Muslim. Fair enough?
Who cares?
He never asked about that. I mean, maybe that will help him. Maybe you throw out a reason that might convince him, but you've still never answered the original question. I think it bears repeating. He at no point asked you, why are you Muslim?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I'm struggling with the questions. And I don't want to look like I'm trying to trick you into answers and things like that.
You do sort of come across as if you're trying to bully him here a little bit, I have to say.
Yeah.
To make you look, for me to become like just a maniac. All right.
Just before you go in, I just want to say that it's because I haven't thought about that line of questioning too much, and so that's why I'm not too familiar with the beginning or the infinite of the universe. It's not something that I know that well.
I think that's the point you need to make at the beginning, Ray, and just stick with it, because they're going to keep trying to press to try and find you. And obviously you did sort of take a position, and that went down a rabbit hole. So again, just stick with whatever you believe, whatever you're going into it with. Don't allow yourself to get bullied into or get sidetracked into accepting a position that you don't hold.
Yeah.
No,
And
no.
Kotonaman is making a good point in the chat. I'm a Muslim because I believe in a creator. And that's it. That's all you have. This is so, so mundane.
It's good you answered that way because that's honesty and that's integrity. All right.
Okay, why did you press him all the time prior to that when that was the first thing he said? Then you kept asking questions, and then he took a position which he probably didn't believe in anyway.
The reason I asked this question, and it's good you never thought about it this way, because now you can think about it this way. Because when you come to the conclusion, I'll tell you my belief in the universe. I believe the universe had a cause. I believe that cause had to be uncaused. It had to.
Okay, so you listen carefully to the words, it had to be. It's not that it's more probable, or that I think it's more likely, or that I just believe it, but it had to be. Now, if you take that, that means that the opposite is not possible. And so now he has a mountain to show that it is impossible for the universe to come about, even if it had a beginning, through natural processes. And I think that is near impossible for him to do. So he's made a monstrous claim, and you won't hear him remotely get close to trying to justify that.
Well, plus there's other ways. Plus there's a million other gods who all claim the same thing. How is he going to disprove all of those?
Well, he wouldn't have to stop if he could demonstrate through the impossibility of the contrary that his particular God did it. That's the easiest way to do it. But nobody's ever been able to do that. So the other,
50,000 years, yeah.
Yeah, so the other option is to argue that it's more probable. But to say that it had to be, now you've got a huge burden, right?
The first cause, as Stephen Hawking would say, because the first cause it can't have a cause because of the problem of infinite regression.
Okay, let's quickly deal with this again. This whole problem of infinite regression, I've actually got it here, and I thought, because Muslims keep repeating this as if they think this is an objection, and it's baffling to me because I don't think they really understand this, right? And when you ask them, what's the problem with infinite regression? Oh, well, if the universe was infinite in the past, we'd never get to this moment of now. What the hell are you talking about? Let me read you something from one of the foremost experts and somebody that he talked about earlier, Sir Roger Penrose, who worked with Stephen Hawking on the book that I've just forgot the name, but Thunderous will remind me. And so here's what Sir Roger Penrose says. And by the way, I was fortunate enough to go to Skydive and interview him in Oxford. And they've got these, as you go towards the cosmology sort of centre in Oxford, they've got these special tiles on the floor. And I was saying to Phil, what are these things? He goes, no, this comes from Penrose's one of Penrose's models. They've actually got the tiles on the floor as you go towards, this thing in Oxford. It's a pretty amazing building as well. And so we sat down. He's a very, you can just tell you're in the process of somebody whose mind is like just way ahead of just about anybody else, right? And he's trying to speak in a language that the rest of us can understand, and here's what he basically says. His model, conformal psychic cosmology, is a model of general relativity in the universe that iterates through infinite cycles, with the future time-like infinity of each previous iteration being identified by the Big Bang singularity of the next. Penrose popularized his theory in the 2010 book Cycles in Time. Penrose's basic construction is to connect a countable sequence of open Friedman-Lemire, Robinson-Walker spacetimes, quite technical stuff, each representing a Big Bang followed by an infinite future expansion. Penrose noted that the past conformal boundary of one copy of this spacetime can be attached to the future conformal boundary of another after a conformal rescaling. Quite technical language. All it simply means, if we dumb it down, is that you can have, there's a lovely picture of which I won't easily be able to show you, but think of it like the Hindenburg, the balloon, the Hindenburg. On each end, universes are connected and they go infinitely in each direction. And so there's nothing that, and this idea that we wouldn't reach this moment of now, we are in one of those moments. What is it that wouldn't reach this moment of now? And if God is infinite, then how would God reach this moment of now? Somehow they've got to overcome that. Oh, well, he's timeless and outside of space, so that doesn't apply to him. So you can come up with any sort of explanation to show how God couldn't do that. But there's nothing in nature that rules out a past eternal universe. And I've just given you one example.
Can't solve. I believe the cause of the universe is conscious because it chose when to cause. It wasn't the cause wasn't a result of the existence of the cause. The effect wasn't a result of the existence of the cause. The effect came in when the cause is choosing, which means it's conscious. I believe
And I've just given you a model that shows that that doesn't have to be the case at all. But he
Exactly.
wouldn't
How
understand
does
this,
it-
even though
yeah.
Skydive Full has explained it in layman's language, probably more accurately and nuanced and better than I ever could. So he has heard of some of this stuff. But of course, he's going to say it couldn't have come about in any other way, and which is demonstrably not the case. To say that you need evidence that it's impossible that it could come about another way, and I've just given you a possibility that has not been refuted in cosmology. And if he's going to claim he's refuted it, by all means put his paper in, and I'm sure Sir Roger Penrose will be interested to hear it. But this babbling, rambling response is obviously not even going to pickle anybody's ears that understands the topic.
that the cause of the universe is intelligent due to what is caused, due to the respiratory system, due to
So now what he's gone on to is the design argument. Hey, look at all these things. Look how amazingly well they're designed. This could only have come about through a teleological mind. And then, I mean, there's many things you could say about this, but then you point out that some of these things are poorly designed. And then what do you say? Now the Christians have an answer to it about, original sin, but the Muslims don't have that answer. So how does Hamza answer this? If you're going to claim that this is all magical and all we have to do is show you how not wonderful certain parts of quote unquote design are in the Muslim view, then that would refute your answer. And that's easy to do. That's just one way you could challenge that.
Rob, can you just take just 1 second? I would like to ask both Mustafa and of course, can free speech survive? If you hear this, and you would have heard this 20 years ago, would that have made any kind of impact on you? Would you have been shaking your head and saying, "What the fuck is this guy talking about?"
For me personally, I'm listening to a guy that's more talking about himself than he is concerned with the person that he's trying to appeal to. I'm listening to a guy that wants to create an argument and win the argument, and thereby, by winning the argument, it's by default a win for Islam. So Islam must be true, because I've just mentioned something, pointed out something, brought something into the conversation. You don't know anything about it. I do know something about it. That's a win for Islam. That's what I'm watching here. When I talk to people about intelligent design, for example, I'm not only trying to talk about the science, I'm trying to talk about the person as well. So it's more about the person than the science, or just as much. What I'm hearing here is just default arguments that I've heard very similar from Zakir Naik as well. There was one where Zakir Naik was talking about how to talk to an atheist. I'm seeing a blueprint here of something I've listened to before. So that's my take on it.
Mustafa?
Well, if 20 years ago I would have been 6 or 7 years old, approximately.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So, like
10 years ago.
That would have
So that was
assuming I heard this like not very long ago. I did hear the infinite regress argument a lot, and again, I previously avoided going down that rabbit hole because I admitted that I'm not an expert in that, in that field. But then there's the tendency of keeping on pressing to it and then I say, listen, the Hindu gods can also make the same claim, or a Hindu can make the same claim.
Okay.
Like using
You're thinking differently. You're just an ex-Muslim. That's why you're an ex-Muslim, because you can think. This is exactly the point.
to the digestive system, due to the nature and the plants and all of these things. This is my belief, yeah? So
Jordan is welcome.
I believe in a powerful, conscious, intelligent cause of everything that exists.
Okay, I want to stop you there. Okay, let me repeat that because something's coming up. I'm going to hold this in the air. What is a powerful, conscious, intelligent cause of the universe? What would anybody call that?
Me.
that could be even a titan too. You never know.
Okay, but what would the common understanding for people around the world be, generally speaking, if you say, hey, I think something is powerful, conscious, and it's an intelligent cause of everything that exists?
Yeah, and
Of course, it's God. Yeah.
Okay, hold that thought. That's all I wanted from you. Hold that thought.
Yeah?
Okay.
Right. Is that reasonable or unreasonable?
It's reason. I can see how you can reasonably get to that position.
Okay, so I actually said, yeah, reason is a subjective criteria. What we can grant is that it's not irrational, i.e. that it doesn't violate any law of logic. But to say something is reasonable, that people are going to invoke their own criteria. I'm not aware of some sort of objective methodology that says, hey, here's what you've got to follow for something to be reasonable. We come with what we call our priors. That's the Sean Carroll term that I forgot. We come to any discussion, to any point, with prior, what is called priors, some ideas, background information that we all have. And that gets injected into our assessment of something. So I might come with the background prior that a God doesn't exist. Thunderous might come with it. And so we'll assess things with different priors. So using the word reasonable is more subjective than anything else. But we can grant that it's irrational. But what we can say, I think, is that his reasons, or its reasonableness in inverted commas, aren't persuasive in light of what he's been saying. I think that would be one way you could respond to it.
Without even saying God, without saying Allah, without mentioning books and prophets and anything.
What did he mention? In everything but name? That's why I kept it out there. See, this is the tactic, right? I'm going to describe Allah or God. I'm not going to use the word, remember, powerful, conscious, intelligent cause of everything that existed, and then claim that I'm not even talking about God or Allah. Right? This is disingenuous, if not dishonest. I leave it up to the safekeeping of the audience to decide on that. If you're going to describe something that has 4 wheels, an engine and 2 doors and a roof and a steering wheel, and somebody says, "What? Oh, but do you drive a car?" I didn't say anything about a car. What are you going to think of somebody that says that sort of thing to you?
Then I concluded that 2 years before accepting Islam. Okay, so I became convinced there must be a cause of this universe. Okay. Now, if there is a cause of this universe, and this cause of the universe is indeed God or Allah, yeah, would at this point you concede that if this is true, then this is the one I should be taking guidance from?
Oh, this is beautiful. Let's just replay that again. Let me just replay that just quickly for you. This is beautiful.
This is like a child, Rob.
I'm just because this is a good point, and he brings this up a lot, right? Let's just hear this again.
Would at this point you concede that if this is true, then this is the one I should be taking guidance from?
Okay, I'm going to pause it there. What do you guys think about that? Before I
It doesn't follow. It's not non sequitur.
Correct.
He's badgering the witness, Your Honor.
Yeah, and how do you know you are actually receiving that guidance from that specific thing? We haven't even established that yet.
Yeah.
Okay, but what he's saying though, Mustafa, is that if there was this creator of the universe, then we should follow it. And like Stop says, my answer is the same, no. Because we could imagine an evil creator of this universe. Would you be following the guidance of a being that you either didn't know or that was evil? No, you wouldn't, right? So what's a hidden premise in this is that this being is omnibenevolent, and number 2, that he somehow has access to that information such that he knows it to be the case. And that's all hidden in the premise there, that, hey, if this creator demonstrated itself, well, you'd just follow it. No, you wouldn't. You'd ask this creator things you'd want to establish. What sort of creator is this? You wouldn't just blindly follow because it established the universe. No. But that shows you that his premises is that it must be all omnibenevolent, and he knows it in some way. And now you ask that question, and down the Euthyphro dilemma we go, which he probably still doesn't know anything about from last Friday. And so that would be problematic.
No, that's a good way. That's a good way of looking at it. No, that actually put me a good different point of view as well. Thank you for that.
I have to point this out just in case somebody can't see the chat later or something, because this is so good. I'm sorry.
Is that true? Can we just check on that, or is that just trolling of supreme level? Okay. I don't know. I mean, there's so many crazy things in the Sahih Hadith. You know, almost any claim could be from the Sahih Hadith.
I'm sorry,
okay,
but this appeals to my sense of humor.
Of course we want to. So this is what we call La ilaha illallah. There's nothing worthy of worship except Allah. But I'm not going to say Allah.
That's not what it says. You're not translating Arabic. You don't know anything about Arabic.
What the other question is, why is a creator of the universe worthy of worship? Especially if you haven't established that this creator is omnibenevolent and wants you to do that? And if the creator doesn't need it, why is it automatically the case that it's worthy of worship? You have a lot more work to do to get to worthy of worship. I don't think, even if you had the most amazing creator, I don't think that if the creator doesn't need it, then the question is, why would he ask for it? If he doesn't require, why would he, quote unquote, want it? But you haven't even got to that stage. You're like miles away from there. All that you're at this moment, that there's a creator of the universe, and you're automatically begging the question or jumping the gun to suggest that it's worthy of worship. What? Because it created the universe and everything in it? No, that's not the case. But you can see how the mind thinks, right?
Yeah, but it could be the prowler in the van with a lollipop luring us in. We don't know this. It could be like the proverbial Satan posing as a god, saying, "I've got something good for you. I've got something good for you." And in reality, it's not. It's the other way around. Like Rob once said something, and this stuck in my mind. It could be the total other way around. That this is a God who really wants to test intelligence and is saying everybody who believes this bullshit is an idiot, and all I want is the people who don't believe it, they will go to heaven. All the other ones are too stupid to go to heaven. This is the real test. So it could be exactly the reverse.
Yeah, no, that's just my hypothesis. That's the opposite to the Muslim claim. What if this was Jibril in disguise? How would you know? How would you be able to establish that it wasn't? And here's the question, here's the killer question that you would have to overcome, and I'm tipping my hand, but it's fine. You would have to be able to respond in such a way that the following question would not apply. And that question is, that's exactly what Jibril or Satan would have you believe. If you have some response that can overcome that, now you have some way to establish that, in fact, it either is Jibril or it's not Jibril. But if until you can do that, you have no way to establish that.
That kind of reminded me of the Yazidi belief too. Like the Yazidi belief with the peacock, that it's the reason why we're here and not God itself. So there's the peacock is the angel, or it's a form of Gabriel in that religion. So it was very fascinating. So it reminded me of that.
Wow. And what did you think?
Of it's a new possibility, definitely. It's definitely a possibility, because it's very similar to the Greek Titan Prometheus, that is, like he got humans free from the gods, and now giving them secret information.
And it's fascinating for a kid. Come on.
Yeah.
Ilaha illallah. There's nothing worthy of worship except Allah. But I'm not going to say Allah yet, because we haven't got there. All right. All I can ascertain.
He's just said it twice. And he says, I'm not going to say it
for real?
Yeah, let me try and steelman him. Right? Let me try and steelman. I know it's not an easy thing, but I'll try. In his mind, he's going from, hey, universe had a cause, to this cause needs to be a teleological, powerful entity, to that entity we call God, to eventually that God is my specific God. So that's the steps that he's going at. And in his mind, he hasn't actually got there yet. But obviously the presupposition is that that's the case. And we all know that. So it's not as, that might work on somebody that's never heard this before, but we already know what the end outcome is. And it's like, you're coming to a crime scene and then you're stepping back and you're going, okay, I just saw that person walk past. Okay, how do I establish that that's the person that did the crime, right? Because I know the crime's done. So now I'm going to find a way to get that guy to be the murderer in the particular crime. That's the way his mind is working. He's trying to go forwards, but actually he's working backwards.
But he's saying the murderer is standing right there, but I'm not going to tell you yet who the killer is.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's a human being. I'm not going to tell you which one.
Yeah.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But this one over in handcuffs here, that's most likely the one, right?
I'm still not screaming at the screen. Please tell me what a good boy I am.
You're doing extremely well in that case.
The juncture is that I have a cause of the universe, which has to be uncaused, which has to be powerful, which has to be conscious.
Okay, he hasn't established any of those things.
No, it's just wishful
He
thinking.
just says it has to be the case, and he hasn't established that in any meaningful way that I've heard whatsoever.
And has to be intelligent by necessity.
Okay, you see, by necessity. So here, Ray, one of the things is, okay, Hamza, how do you get to that? I can understand that you might believe it's more probable, but how do you establish what he's really saying? It's the impossibility of the contrary. It is impossible for it to be any other way. That's what has to be means if we use the language, right? And so now the question is, well, how have you established, how have you ruled out that anything else is possible? Or in other words, that you've ruled out everything else is impossible. How have you done that? Not heard a single thing remotely getting close to that.
And I don't even see, I spoke with a guy about this from Eton, and he agreed that my reasons for believing in a creator of the universe are 100% logical, okay? Which means they're what? Good reasons.
No. I've got a big no here. I've got like a huge no here in my notes. Let's replay. Let's say that again. Hey, some guy from Eton. Well, that's an appeal to authority. Some guy at Eton. Well, that definitely means that it must be the case. Let's find this guy because he's obviously the authority on what must be reasonable or logical. So his bar is okay. It's told me that it's totally logical, which is the lowest bar that you can possibly get in a rational discussion. Right? That's where you start. That's a given. We all accept that somebody's going to attempt to come with a rational argument. If we establish it's irrational, they're out of the playing field. So that's almost like a given, and he's like patting himself on the back. But then his non sequitur is, hey, if it's rational, therefore it's, what was the words again? Let's just play that again just for a few moments.
Creator of the universe are 100% logical, okay? Which means they're what? Good reasons.
No. If something is rational, it doesn't mean that it's good reasons. It just means that it's overcome the lowest bar, which is you've shown that it's not irrational. That does not remotely mean that it's good reasons. I could believe that Zeus is the god that actually exists. Is that an irrational belief? No, he's just hidden in another dimension. He stepped back behind the fifth dimension on Mount Olympus that nobody can see. That's not irrational. Have I got good reasons for believing it? No. So it's complete non sequitur here.
Good reasons to believe. Okay?
But do you see what happened there, Ray? So if you're watching there, and this is not easy, right? And if you do a lot more of this, you'll pick it up as you go, right? It just takes experience to hear these sort of things. Swap from one to the other. And where you think, oh, hang on a moment, how does that go? How does he get from it's rational to it's good reasons? No, hang on a moment, there's some problem there. Highlight it, even if you don't know what it's called or whatever the case is, but then ask him, hang on a moment, how did you get from there to there? That doesn't sound like you didn't give a reason for how you got one to the other, right? That's one way you can do it.
Okay. Part that there. Now, here's the thing. How would we know about this creator? How would we find out why he created us and what's our purpose and where we're going?
Okay, so there's many answers. One is he could directly make it known in the brain of every human at the time of birth or any time thereafter, such that it would be a priori, which means reasoning or knowledge, which precedes theoretical deduction rather than observation or experience. In other words, it's in there before you have to go out into the world and observe and make inferences. So he could have directly put that into every human brain a priori. That's one. That's probably, as far as I can tell, the best possible way that God could have got his message, the specific God, in this case Allah, into human brains. Just directly beam it in there with all the a priori knowledge from birth, and you suddenly discover this as your brain matures. You suddenly, it's like opening a lock, right? Suddenly the lock opens, and that information the creator's put in there is suddenly revealed to you. It's discovered because it was a priori in there anyway. To me, that seems the best way. And of course, every human discovers this, and they discover exactly the same thing with such precision and ingenuity that it just baffles humanity. That would be a pretty good way, I think.
And how could we possibly get that information? That's the question.
Probably if there's clues written in the universe or some sort of some clue. You need to give us some sort of clues.
Right.
I think you just got to be careful with that one, Ray. If you're going to say something like clues, again, what might be better to say, well, what is the attributes? Does this God want us to know about him? Because if a God does want you to know about him, then saying clues is probably not a good idea. That's like saying, okay, I really want you to go out there and pick up that spade outside. And you walk outside, you don't see a spade. You say, well, where's a spade? You say, no, have a look there. Look at the clues of the footprints, or look at how that shrub has been moved. But I want that spade. Bring it in here now, right? It's something like that, where you want somebody to know or find something, but in fact you're giving them clues. That would be inconsistent. So I think you just got to ask, what does God want? and then give what's in your mind the best way that God could do this, and then ask somebody like Hamza, well, here's what I think God would do, or how he would get this information to us. But instead he did it with a book that was authored after his death, and through somebody who heard voices in a cave, and then other people had to write it down. Is this really the best way that God could communicate this all-important message to all of humanity? No, I don't think so, right? And now he's left to try and, because he has to argue this, he's now left to try at the low bar and say, no, this is the best, and try and justify that. And at that point, of course, he looks absurd, except to his gullible followers, who will think it's amazing whatever comes out of his mouth. But the rest of us will just, slap our foreheads probably.
So basically, the only way we can find out is if he reveals the information.
Okay.
You couldn't find out about the cause of the universe unless the cause of the universe revealed information about.
No, of course you could. You could discover it, right, as we have. So even if God was the cause of the universe and we discovered it and he didn't reveal it, unless you're claiming that everything that happens is a revelation of God, in which case we don't have free will, so you're not going to go that route. But if you are saying that it's impossible for us to do it, well, we've discovered that there's a Big Bang. That doesn't tell us about the cause of the universe, but we're fairly close to finding out what might be prior to the Big Bang. And we don't have a God involved there. So that's not the only way.
Itself,
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Now, so what we're looking for next now is is it reasonable to assume that the cause of the universe has indeed revealed information about the cause of the universe and everything else? Is it reasonable to think that? Is it to assume that? If the cause exists, of course it's reasonable. So this is where we move on to stage 2 now. So we look in history and we see many, many men claim to be messengers sent by this cause.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay. And if you look at all of the messengers, there was only one messenger that claimed to come for all of mankind.
Really? I put here really with a big question
That's
mark.
Total garbage. Matthew 28, 19 and 20. Crying out loud.
What does that say? Just so we know.
Go therefore make disciples in the whole inhabited earth for a witness to all the nations, and then baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And then there's Matthew 24:14. Then there's John 3:16. Then there's Romans 10, 13, 14, 15. There's Isaiah chapter 2 verses 2 to 4. Then there's Haggai 2:7.
Okay. We get the idea. But I think what he's going to say is no. Jesus came for the Jews, right?
No,
and obviously you can refute him on that if you like. But my big thing is really, where's your evidence for that? Have you investigated all these other so-called messengers and established that nobody makes this claim?
123,999 of them.
Yep, but Muhammad was the only one apparently through his non-existent level of investigation. Hey, you're entitled to, put out your faith-based claims if you want. Just don't expect the rest of us to take it seriously.
All the previous men who made this claim for the Jews, came for these people, came for their people. Noah came for his. They all claimed for their own people. The only one man in history to have claimed to have come for all of mankind was who? Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon him. Okay.
Wait. It doesn't seem like it. It does not seem like he came for all. In fact, he probably came for the Arabs. That's what it looks like, because what happened after was an Arabian Empire and just Arab dominance. And I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but then there's this focus on the Arab, right? The Arab is the main focus, so it kind of establishes some form of a superiority in terms of race. So it doesn't necessarily mean he came for all. And even if slaves become Muslim, they still remain slaves. They don't get freed or anything like that.
Yeah, and if he had come for all, we would, again, what would we reasonably expect to find? We would expect to find messengers in other countries or other humans that have said very similar things to Muhammad around the world that are totally disconnected from each other. In, South America, the Incas, or, the Indians in North America, or the Aborigines in Australia, or any of the other tribes that are spread out around the world, we would get a similar message there. There's one God, he wants you to know, and here is what you need in order to believe in him, or whatever the case is. And what do we get? A wide disparity of different ideas across different cultures and nations around the world. The exact opposite of what we would expect if all these messages had come and given a similar message.
Actually, this
So-
this is something that kills Islam if you actually follow the logical thinking, logical reasoning here, because it says that no person will be and no nation will be punished unless they have a messenger. This, of course, contradicts with Muhammad being the last messenger, so I cannot get my messenger. So what they have to do and say is, well, Muhammad came for everybody. Well, tough shit. I'm here now. Muhammad died over 1,000 years ago, if he even existed. So how does that help me? It doesn't help me one bit. And the things that I get from Muhammad are not the things that I would want to do in my life here on this planet. So this totally kills Islam and all concepts that you see in the Quran, where every person is entitled to their messenger. Every nation is entitled to their messenger. But we have nations that are only 10 years old, like South Sudan. So they have never had their messenger. So what are they supposed to do? So the whole concept in the Quran of the messengers is totally flawed.
Good point.
You now need good reason to believe he is who he claimed to be.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Sorry, was somebody saying something?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because he's claiming to be a messenger of God now.
Okay.
Now, what are the alternatives?
Okay. Instead of saying, here's the reasons why he claims to be the messenger of God, let me give you the reasons. And hey, Ray, can you go and evaluate these reasons? What does he do? A shifting of the burden. Can you give me alternatives? This is not the way you argue in favor of Muhammad being the messenger and giving us this evidence, saying, hey, I've got to come up with other alternatives. No, that's shifting the burden of proof.
Alternatives within him saying who he is.
So he's saying he's a messenger of God. What are the alternatives?
He could be lying.
The easier one, Ray, I just wrote down here is he's not the messenger of God. What's the alternative? Because you heard the word alternatives and suddenly, you got to be careful as well. He's got the view that there's all these alternatives. And so he uses that language because he's going to give you liar, crazy, whatever. He's got his script. He knows these three things and he's going to want you to go along that line. But the alternative is he's not a messenger of God. That's a true dichotomy. Either he is or he isn't. But he's asking you for certain things. Go on.
Can I just add on to that as well? When you say that he's not, okay, they will start citing things like, I'm not saying this will happen in this instance, but maybe certainly with other Muslim apologists that might start going down the road that when you start saying that he's not or he's lying, like how could he be in line with all the scientific miracles? How could he be in line with this? He's listed as the most important human being that's ever lived by certain people. Do you see what I mean? There's the rationalizations. He can't be that, what you say, if people say this about him or if this book contains that about certain things.
Yeah, remember that what his claim is, though, Thunderous. He's now shifted the burden to Ray and saying, what's the alternative to him being a messenger or a prophet?
Yeah. That's absolutely. But what I'm saying is, I can imagine some Muslim Dawagandists will start prepping that line of reason by using the science and things like that as a defense for you can't say that about him if the book contains this. Or if
yes, sure. Yeah, they could then start to defend that. But again, something that Ray and the rest of us could do is go, hang on a moment, you said he was a prophet, right? A messenger of God. What's your reasons for that? Ask me what are the alternatives is irrelevant. I'm waiting for you to demonstrate your claim.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so easy to get, and that's something that I do my best to think in my mind is, okay, he's made a claim. What's the reasons, the evidence, the argument for that? Because they make a claim and they very quickly shift it, oftentimes. And if we're not paying attention, then we end up defending something when they've made a claim and it stands unchallenged. And then, the gullible audience goes, wow, that was amazing. All that happened is he made a claim and he didn't allow the other person to, or he didn't back it up and the other person didn't press him on the claim.
This is what you were just referring to.
Sorry, say again.
This is what you were just referring to.
Fine. Anything else?
It could be mistaken.
Okay. That's the most charitable. That's the easiest for us to challenge, and it's the hardest for him to defend. Do you think he's going to respond to that or acknowledge that? If you want to predict, go ahead.
He could be delusional
Delusional. What else?
or crazy. Yeah.
Well,
Which one did he not acknowledge? I don't think it's difficult, right? The
can't
hardest
bring
one
in
for
the
him to
screen
defend
again.
and the easiest for us to challenge.
I think
Why do you think that is, by the way? For those of us that know Hamza and other Muslim apologists, because they have a script that says there's 3 options and they purposefully, willingly and knowingly exclude the option that he could be mistaken, because that's the hard one to defend and the easy one for us.
I think more I don't know what else, but I think it's more likely he could be lying.
lying.
Okay, see, again, I made a note here. Careful, Ray, because you need to provide the evidence for your claim. When Hamza should be providing the evidence for his claim, also claim somebody is lying, you have to show the evidence of their intent, which is very hard to do. So mistaken is much easier, and Hamza sidestepped acknowledging that you made that. You did actually say it, but I would press that one. Don't go with any of the other options. You don't need to. But now you've taken a position, and now again, watch what's going to happen now. You're going to have to defend that. Be careful of this, Ray. It's happened a couple of times, and this is good learning for you. Don't go with an option unless you really think you've got good reasons for it.
Rob, you need to reactivate the screen.
Sorry?
You need to reactivate the screen. I didn't know that if I leave, it won't go back. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Answer.
I'll go with that. Yeah.
Okay. So if we can give you good reason to believe he didn't lie, then what?
Yeah. If you can give me, then I'll probably believe that he wasn't lying.
That's a good answer, right?
Exactly.
That's a good answer, right? Yeah. I mean, it's the straightforwardly obvious answer. Then I'm going to believe he's not lying, yeah.
And then what?
That's it.
Yeah, then I can believe what he's saying. But if you can show me that.
Okay, I want to make a small correction here. Really, what you can do is you can accept that he believed what he was saying. That still doesn't establish that what he said is in fact true. It's a small thing, but it's something that's worth noting. If he's not a liar, all that means is that he believes that he's telling you the truth. That doesn't mean that it's actually true. Small one.
That he definitively wasn't lying, and then I'll believe what he says and say who he is.
Fantastic. So you believe he lied?
I think that's the most plausible explanation.
And what are your good reasons for that?
See what happened? What's your good reasons for that? You now have the burden.
Yeah, don't do that.
That's okay. He's learning. It's good. It's good for him to learn. The best way is to make these mistakes, and we all do it, by the way. We just got to be humble to go, okay, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that, right? And we all do it. We all have. We all will. So it's good here. And again, I want to praise him for going onto the show. And he asked us to do this. So hopefully he's getting value from this. And, big up to Ray.
Yeah.
The claims that he makes is too extraordinary because we know people can lie. People do lie all the time. And so when it comes to big claims that they're making, they need stronger evidence. And I don't think the evidence or the reasons that he's given justifies these claims. It's just too big. The claims are just too big.
Okay, that your reasons now are better for if he was mistaken than if he's lying, right? You haven't established that he's lying. All you've established is that you think it's less likely that what he's saying matches the truth. But the lying means that you've got to add intent to it, and that's very difficult for you to demonstrate. And all Hamza has to do is say, hey, all his compatriots, even his enemies, everybody said he wasn't a liar, right? And then it looks like you've been completely refuted on the liar claim. So it's a much harder bar for you, and it looks much easier for Hamza to overcome. Right? So, again, just something for you to bear in mind.
By the way,
To be true.
just in case somebody does go here, there is no evidence, all right, that there is anything that says that Muhammad was not a liar. It's only the texts themselves that are making that claim. It's always Muhammad himself that says, I am not a liar, I am liable, I am the one that this, and then you have supplementary stories around this, that he was the one who was the arbiter for the four the different tribes and things like that. But these are all Islamic texts, so there is nothing outside any Islamic text that refers to Muhammad in any which way.
That's a good point, Stops.
Right. So, what's your good reason again? Sorry. Well, because you don't like what he's saying. What that makes him a liar.
It's like, guys, did we just not hear why he said this? That's why I think that this must have been Hamza's worst day. I'm trying to be charitable to the guy here, but he just explained why he doesn't think so, and Hamza's asking him again. And I think the reason is at this moment in time because Hamza's kind of stuck. He doesn't know where to go next. So if you ask the question again, it gives you time to think. Your interlocutor now has to repeat himself. Maybe he'll say something different. Maybe he'll trip himself up, etc. So, this is just like a stalling tactic because I just don't know where to go next. So I'll just ask the question again like I didn't hear it or get him to do it. And I think as an interlocutor, hang on a moment, and Stops did this very well on his show when he went on. He says, do I have to repeat myself? Like making it very clear that he's already said this and this guy wasn't paying, whoever it was that asked him the question again and again, wasn't paying attention or pretends not to pay attention, in which case they're disingenuous. So call that out. If you've said something once and you hear the question again, ask them, do I have to repeat myself? Were you not listening? Weren't you paying attention? Did you not comprehend it? What do I need to do so that you can better understand it the first time?
Because I think the claims is too big that he's making, and therefore it's unreasonable to believe those claims off of the little evidence that is given.
Why is the claim too big?
The claims are to be like this. I don't know how the saying goes, but the bigger the claim, the more evidence you need. And he's coming with large claims, saying that he's the messenger, and I don't think that he's justified with the evidence.
Messenger of who?
From Allah.
No, from the Creator, yeah?
You see, he's just got the default position of saying no. He says Allah, he says no, the Creator, right? It's just recognizing the pattern and not to get put off by that, because he'll say no, and somebody who's, going like, what? He said no, but I mean, I'm sure I said the right thing, right? And it can confuse somebody who's maybe new to this, right? If you keep saying no, no, no. And I don't know whether he's aware that he does this, whether this is actually a tactic or not. I don't know. I'm not in his brain, but you can see how it just comes up almost automatically. Right?
It's a knee jerk.
Yeah, from the Creator.
Oh, okay. And why? What's your good reasons to believe he's not telling the truth?
Because
this is how many times now?
Yeah.
Yep. This is the third time now, or there will be a third time.
Because that he's not telling the truth. That's because of the claims that he's making. It's too big. So it's more likely that he's lying than it being actually true.
Okay. How would you know if someone's lying?
You can test the claim.
But you see, that is actually a good question, right? I'm gonna give it to Hamza. That's not a bad question to ask. How would you know he's lying? But the reason that you're now in this position, Ray, is because you went down the much harder route of claiming that he's lying, right? And in order to claim that, in order to establish he's lying, you're going to have to know his intent, and you're going to have some evidence that points to him believing something that wasn't true and saying that believing something that's false and saying that it was true. That's going to be quite a hard burden for you. I mean, maybe again, Stops knows something, but generally speaking, that tactic is very hard for somebody to mount a defense or give reasons for.
It's actually incredibly easy. All you need to do is read a couple of hadiths. They are all contradicting one another. They are contradicting the Quran. The Quran is contradicting the hadith, so there is no consensus on anything in the hadith. It's a huge joke.
But the thing is, then Stops, if you go down that route, of course, the first thing a Muslim's going to ask you, well, prove what you just said. You made all these monstrous claims. Show us where there's all these contradictions. And of course, by the way, if something does contradict the Quran, then we don't accept it anyway, because that wasn't Muhammad speaking. That was his, people who were listening, other people. So we won't accept that, right? They can try and get out of it that way.
Right. And how would you? So if someone says something to you. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
If someone said to you, Nelson Mandela, whilst he was alive, after receiving his Nobel Peace Prize, was caught burgling a house, what would your response be?
I would say that it's very unlikely that you do something like that.
Why?
Because he doesn't have a good reason to go burgle a house. I know he should be wealthy. He's not that kind of person with low morals to go do something like that. So if someone present that to me, they would need to give me the evidence, and I wouldn't believe something like that.
Right. So basically what you would do, if someone makes a claim about somebody, you would test his character.
Yes.
Okay. And look for the motives, like you said, he's wealthy. Why would he need to burgle? And
Yes.
that kind of guy. I get that. Okay. Why did Muhammad lie, according to you?
So first of all, I do remember a little bit of Islam, and I do remember there was people at the time in his vicinity that did say that he was lying. And I know that there was people also that said that he wasn't a liar, that he was the most truthful.
You missed the point. I'm asking you, why do you believe he would lie?
He
That's
just
why.
told
He's giving you the reason.
the reason. Like I wrote here, are you not understanding or accepting his reasons
Yes.
and claiming and you're claiming he's missing the point? What are you smoking? At this point, I was like, are you speaking to somebody else? He's literally like the last sentence he said was giving you the reasons why. Now you ask him again. And I genuinely think that Hamza's brain was, to whatever degree it's normally operational, it wasn't operational here. So he wasn't paying attention. He didn't know what to do next. And so one of the tactics is just ask the question again, find some way to stall. And the people who are watching, by the way, the gullible audience here would have thought he did an amazing job. I guarantee if we go and look now, if any of you want to go and have a look for this, if you go and look for the name of this thing and go and look at the comments, you'll all see it's just everybody swooning over how wonderful this is. The only thing that I did say...
who is critical is deleted.
Actually, the interesting thing on this particular one is somebody put in the comments that, I don't know if it was Hamza or one of the Yafdawa people, said, hey, don't have negative comments here, because he seems like a genuine guy. They think he might convert, and maybe he will. Hopefully after this he won't, at least not by speaking to Hamza at the end of it. But they did sort of say, hey, don't have negative comments. So there must have been enough of them for them to write something into the text. Go look at the video itself. You'll see the very top pinned comment is, hey, we'll delete any comments that are derogatory towards him. So there must have been enough of them for that to happen.
Okay, if we eliminate the options, could he be telling the truth? Is he crazy or is he lying? I think it's more...
You forgot the other one that you did mention, though. Is he mistaken, right? That's the only one, Ray, that you need to defend. The other ones are going to be much harder for you.
More likely that he's lying than he's telling the truth, or that he's crazy.
Look, a crazy person tells the truth.
I just wrote here, a crazy person could be telling the truth. It depends what it is that they're crazy about. If somebody says, hey, I'm Hitler, then it's very likely they're not telling the truth. If that person who says, hey, I'm Hitler, says, hey, I believe that man landed on the moon, for example, then he's likely telling the truth. So it depends what's crazy. So sometimes they can tell the truth, sometimes they don't. It's like any other human, basically. It's just that certain things they would be demonstrably wrong on, and which is why we would label them crazy.
Do you accept that?
Yes.
Because they think they're telling the truth. That's the whole point of being crazy, right?
Yeah.
So a crazy person tells the truth.
Only on certain occasions, not necessarily, and certainly not on what they claim to be crazy on. Otherwise, you wouldn't be giving them a label crazy.
Your claim is he lied. Therefore, he's a liar. So now, they would know.
How about that for a tautology, right? And I haven't got much to say. I'll just utter a tautology. Hey, you thought he told a lie, therefore he's a liar. Tell us something informative.
Nelson Mandela, you looked at his life, he's wealthy, he's this, he's that. So there's no motive, there's no reason for him to lie.
Yeah.
Why do you believe Muhammad Sallallahu lied?
Maybe he wanted...
Ooh, as soon as you go down the maybe route, I put here speculation. He's now asking you to speculate. Otherwise, he would have asked you for the reasons, and you would have to provide evidence. At the moment, he's saying why, and you said, "Oh, maybe." As soon as you go down that route, like you've opened a can of worms, and let's see how this goes. Because this is as far as I got with the notes, and now we're all running through it together.
By the way, I just want to point
think more
out something.
power
We
could be
have extended the times of the Gin and Tonic show. All right, so we have changed the format a little bit to accommodate this, because this was a genuine question, a genuine request from somebody who needed some pointers, who needed some support in something. This is why we decided to change it for today. This does not mean we're always going to do it. It's just that now we are extending. So we are half an hour over the normally allotted time. So if you want to drop off, and because it's too late for you, that's fine. We're just going to continue with this for a while. I don't know if we're still going to be able to go to the Discord server later on. This is just making you aware that today is a little bit of a different show.
stops. The other thing we could do, if you like, because I haven't actually taken notes further than this myself, what we could do is end it here as a part one, come back next week and do part two. That gives us a chance to speak to people on Discord. It means we also don't have to stay up late.
That's also
And we
a
know we've got
possibility
something we
because
can
we're
do for next
halfway.
week if the other guys want to. Yeah, we're pretty much at half distance. So the rest of us panelists here, what do you guys think? And in the comments, would that be a good idea? Because we won't finish it tonight, and then we'll kind of leave it half done. So my suggestion is we come back for a part two, but I'm open to the democratic view on that.
I'm open. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. No, okay. There's something with the sound. Yeah, I'm okay with coming next week.
Okay, but then actually this sounds like a good idea because we're never going to be finished this today. We'll be finishing this today because it took us 2.5 hours. It's going to take another 2.5 hours to finish this. Then I actually think this is a good idea to continue with this next week. And then Rob's homework is going. Oh, I don't have any homework. So Rob's homework is going to go and take some notes on this. Then we'll just continue next week. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could do it
All right.
live now, but I think I'd catch a little bit more if I just do it live and write something down, because then I can also remember, hang on, I wrote that down. He said this, and that those two don't gel. So it just gives it a bit more complete, but we could still do it live if we needed to.
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay. Then let's. Oh, great. Yeah. Is everybody okay? Thunder, are you okay with this?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. And Mustafa, you said you're also okay.
Yes, I'm
All right.
okay.
Then let's do it. It's decided. Let's do it. Then Rob, thank you very much for this. Thank you very much for doing this for next week, that you take some notes, because it's really helpful to go through this stuff in advance so that you don't catch this cold. And yeah, that's cool. So then what I'm just going to do okay, let's allocate another 10 minutes. Questions, anybody who wants to join us, anybody who wants to do anything, comment on this. I don't know what you want to do, otherwise we'll just go to Hadith and then go to the Discord server. We can discuss this, and it's a more free flow activity there than it is over here.
Yeah, and if there's any questions in the chat, if anybody has anything that we missed, or you think that you'd want us to bring up, or anything like that, then pop it in the chat. But the other option, of course, is we'll go to Discord. So here is the Discord link. I hope this link is still working. And we'll just pop this on, and you can join us there. I'll pop it into chat as well. And hopefully that takes us straight to Discord. I'll test it.
Okay, super. All right, guys, then what remains for me is to go and give you the 3 hadiths that I was promising you, because they're really short and they're all on the same topic, and that's why I decided to do 3 for the price of 1. So it's all from Bukhari. It's volume 1, book 4, number 147, number 152, and 137, all from book number 4. The first one is narrated Abdullah bin Umar. People say, whenever you sit for answering the call of nature, you should not face the Qibla, or Bayt al-Maqdis, in other words, Jerusalem. Once I went up the roof of our house, and I saw Allah's apostle answering the call of nature while sitting on 2 bricks facing Jerusalem. But there was a screen covering him. That is hadith number 1. Hadith number 2 is narrated Anas bin Malik. Whenever Allah's apostle went to answer the call of nature, I, along with another boy, used to accompany him with a tumbler full of water, so that he might wash his private parts with it. And hadith number 3 is narrated Abu Huraira. Of course, Allah's apostle said, the prayer of a person who does hadath, not hadith, but hadath, in other words, passes urine, stool, or wind or something, is not accepted till he performs the ablution. Now, a person from Hadaramut asked Abu Huraira, what is hadath? And Abu Huraira replied, hadath means the passing of wind from the anus. So this is the kind of level of detail that Muslims have to concern themselves with. This is how important this is and what Muslims need to remember. So I'm not surprised that somebody says, listen, I've had enough of this, I'm out. But there you go. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to remember when you become a Muslim. It's down. It's all the way. It's all down to the detail, isn't it? All right, guys, that's it for today. Thank you very much. And please remember, we are going to go to the Discord server now. Rob, any other closing words from you?
No, that's all good. Hopefully that was educational, entertaining, and of some value. And we'll be back for part 2 next week. Ray, if you're listening, hopefully you found that valuable. Hopefully you'll be back next week, same time, and we'll finish this video off.
And if you want, just come to the Discord server. We're happy to speak to you. And next on my here on my right is Mustafa. What do you say?
Take care, everybody. I'll see you all next week, and we'll continue with this torture of our brains. Unfortunately, torture, but we'll protect ourselves willingly.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, can free speech survive Islam?
I bid everybody a farewell. Have an enjoyable weekend. I say the same to my panelists. Mustafa, good to have you on the panel again this evening with us. And to the audience, thank you for being a part of the show, and look forward to seeing you all again next week.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for the people in the chat. I hope it's been entertaining and at the same time educational. And if you want to comment, if you want to do anything, just give us a shout. See you next week. Cheerio.